The Select Board to order at 7:01. If you'll please stand and join me in the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Oh, Lillian is there, okay. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the November 19th meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Gray, seconded by McCarthy. Any discussion about the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye, passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is PF Hospitality, doing business as Sandbar, 297 Nantasket Avenue. Proposed manager, Moira Coffey. So it's a request for a change of manager for all alcohol, common vic, and entertainment renewal. Lillian, would you like to speak to it?
Yep, so we've been in operation about 5 years now, and with the opening of Shipwrecked last year, it's just come time that I hand the reins over to Moira, who basically runs Shipwrecked Sandbar anyway. So just put forward a request to go ahead and assign Moira Coffey officially as manager for Sandbar.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, as requested.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Moved by Gray, seconded by McCarthy.
Sorry, just one note. I believe this is also for, they also have a renewal on here. I thought it was listed for the 7 o'clock appointment, but I don't know if you want to take that approval while Lillian is here and we're,
Item number 11 on the license.
yes.
Oh, okay. So while you're here, we'll move down to approvals for your alcohol license, application for PF Hospitality, doing business as Shipwrecked, extension to remain open until January 15th, 2026. What is your current license now for?
It's seasonal, so it runs through November 30th. So no change of hours or anything, it's just to allow us to continue to offer service through January 15th.
Did you want?
Yeah, no,
Oh.
that, so businesses can have an extension up to January 15th. This is just a standard extension.
Any questions or discussions? So do you want to amend the motion to approve both? Because, well, let's first vote on the change of manager. That motion was made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Congratulations, Maura. And now, I'm sorry, a motion to extend the hours until January 15th, 2026?
I'll make that motion, and it's for Shipwrecked.
It's a Shipwrecked, yes. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Gray, seconded by McCarthy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
And then, Erwin, I see that there's one more entertainment renewal
For Shipwrecked?
for Shipwrecked on the third page, sorry. Is that a separate?
Common vic,
What?
managing.
I don't know if she needs it.
No, I just wanted to make sure there's also a common vic.
Oh, right, okay.
But I don't know if they need to even be here for that.
No, you don't have to. We're going to do those as a group anyway. Yeah. Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. All questions can go to Moira.
That's how you delegate.
You sure you want to do this? Thank you, have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, next is a presentation by the Economic Development Committee to provide updates and discussion of goals. Do you have a quorum? So if you can call your committee to order?
Yep, so I'm going to call the Economic Development Committee meeting to order at 7:07. Present are Jen Mullen, Jim Ianieri, Steve Greenberg, Meg Riley, and myself. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
The first thing on the agenda is a marketing and branding campaign presentation. I hope you all had a chance to review the long version that we sent you. This has been about a year in the making of really trying to professionalize and bring some new things to Hull that can really help revitalize and really get the economy moving. And so with that, this presentation is a culmination of a task force that was created, and it was really pushed by Steve Greenberg and Erin Swenson-Gorel. And so with that, I'm going to let her take over and she's going to give you sort of a shortened version and just give you the highlights of this. And what we'd like is to get your feedback on this and really get your vote of approval, or if you feel like there's some changes. There is one change that our board would like on this that we'll go over, but really be able to get your buy-in on this as a town-wide policy.
Great, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Erin Swenson-Gorel. Are you able to put up the?
Yeah, I'm looking for it right now.
Welcome.
Hi, thanks.
Technically, I'm on the voting member as well, so
Right.
I didn't know which hat you wanted
Yeah, I don't know how
to
this
wear
works.
on this.
And when you guys have presenters, do they stand?
You can
Where you
sit
could sit, stand,
wherever you're
whatever.
I think it
comfortable.
was addressed to Lori.
Is it Lori? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a couple of printouts, if anybody would like one.
And I can always
We could
send
probably,
it along.
yeah,
You want me to forward right now?
Sure, if
Like-
it's right up top there.
Okay. Erin, you're not a member of the
I have it.
committee?
You have it?
No, I am not a member of the EDC. I'm just a citizen. I work with the team as a pro bono consultant as we work through this. It started as a bit of a passion project in regards to research, and we worked on a research project with a couple of the nonprofits in town, and then that led to some discussions with the chamber and presenting some of the research with the chamber, and that led to a group of hand raisers that formed what we are calling the Integrated Marketing Task Force. And so that group is, I'm just going to say the names because I'm just representing them here. I have worked in business consulting for over 20 years, so I'm just the mouthpiece. This is a collaborative effort of so many people who've been a part of this. So Steve Greenberg, Jennifer Friedman, Martin and Irene Davey, Ryan Rapp, Gisela Voss, Jim Iannieri, Sue Vermilia, Stephen Werther, and Anne Marie Kenny are all members who have been a part of the task force. And we also had help from a local young woman named Hannah Campbell who works at the Bread Basket, and she's a burgeoning branding and marketing person, and so she devoted a lot of her time to this also. And so our first meeting was with the chamber, and we worked in different moments together throughout the end of 2024 and all of 2025. And then we worked to present this to the Economic Development Committee. They kind of signed off on it, and so as we've gone along, it's been sort of a head nod, handshake, and let's move it to the next group, because we're all hoping that we can agree on some of the goals and then some of the go forward pieces. So today we're here just looking at where we've gotten.
Erin, I just want to make sure that we're going through this.
Yes,
as well.
yeah. Do you guys have like a clicker, or do you want me to click it? Okay. Okay. All right, great. So you guys can read through this, but I'll streamline it. So this started with an effort to create a level of interest and intrigue as America turns 250. There's a lot of energy by the federal and then state and local governments to put efforts behind this, which I'm sure you guys are already intimately involved in. And so the goal was, as 2026 comes, how can Hull be a part of this and invite new guests and bring in new dollars and new energy and utilize that 250th birthday as sort of a spine to why we would be inviting new people and asking people to come experience Hull. So the goal is to bring in more money and dollars to Hull as we come through into 2026. So we go to the next slide. The work done to date, as I mentioned, there's been survey work. We've also looked at some of the MAPC survey work that was just shared last week. We created a task force of hand raisers. I mentioned those different people. All have different ownership of why they wanted to be a part of it. There were a lot of local businesses, but some people were also just members of the EDC or the chamber. But a lot of them were local businesses who are looking to bring in those dollars in times when they could use them to make their businesses a little bit more continuous. So we met as a task force 4 different times, usually quarterly, January, March, and then we met in the summer again. We did a SWOT analysis and talked about the goals of the project, and then we worked on tactics and taglines and different ways that we could actually bring some of these goals to life, and we've landed on this condensed presentation. So we can go to the next slide. The goals of the project, as it being an EDC and chamber economic development and chamber piece, the top 3 are obviously really simple. Increase dollars to local businesses is a goal. To be a little bit clearer on that is how can we increase dollars and foot traffic on non-beach days, specifically in spring and fall. So shoulder season being a key piece. Winter is another goal, but we thought we'd start somewhere. And spring and fall being that goal. And then how can we increase dollars in exploration of people who come on beach days? How can we get them out of just going from their car to the beach and maybe do a little exploring? And then underneath some of the softer metrics, how can we change perception of Hull among South Shore and Boston travelers? How can we increase pride and collectiveness amongst Hullonians? And then how can we be on the list of day travelers and weekend travelers, as we have so much energy coming into Boston. So I want to go quickly over this slide, but this is just to set a level set, which we sometimes know there is some perception out there that Hull is struggling, and this is not meant to be quantitative in any form. This was from Boston Magazine last year. And depending on which piece of press you read, they'll use different metrics to come to these, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it is correct, but they have a Hull as like at the bottom quadrant of places to live. And we also have seen that in some of the other research, that there's still some of that perception out there. So we can not spend too much time on that. The next slide, this is the quick SWOT analysis. So when we went through our strengths, weaknesses, and threats with that combined group that I spoke of, obviously strengths are huge. So our coastal and natural assets, our community and culture, our attractions and lifestyle, and also our connectivity and growth. There's a lot of new energy and ways to get here that are strengths. Some of the weaknesses that were discussed in the group are business and economy, some of the perception and reputation, varying governance perspectives, and then our marketing and experiences. It's a bit disjointed from the outside perspective of what we offer and when we offer it. And then threats to this also, we have governance and management, infrastructure and development, and then ironically, one of our biggest assets can also be one of our biggest threats, which is community and culture. And that's just the way that it is. All right, next slide. We wanted to focus a little bit more on the opportunities. Usually we would end on the SWOT, but we're doing a SWOTO. The opportunities are the huge part that the EDC wanted to bring to life. So our heritage and culture, so our historic nature trips, our boating and water sport community, our events and activities. Obviously we have a lot of event seekers. There's possibility to co-create events with businesses and gamify the peninsula. The community connection opportunity, how can we better educate all on what we offer? And how can we connect points of new and old within Hull? And then business promotion, how can we cross-promote events and businesses and also pop up Hull businesses with events across Massachusetts? So as we walked further into the strategy piece, we again focused on the 250th anniversary of America, and as Hull celebrates this, we saw 3 sort of prongs that we could really be a part of. This one, we're not going to talk about a ton here because I'm assuming this is huge with the group that's already working on it, the events and cultural programs. So this is not only what you're doing, but what all the other groups are doing, from Pride to the carousel, but events will, I'm sure, be a large part of this. So parades, music festivals, historical reenactments, and then cultural programs. What we're talking about here today is the marketing and promotion, and then enhancing the visitor experience when people come. So we're not trying to bite off all of this because it's a whole community effort that this will hopefully act as an umbrella to. But our goals were to introduce the idea of a branding campaign, so a unique theme, logo for Hull's participation in this moment. How can we have some targeted advertising / just targeted audiences that we know would like what we have here, and then possibly some influencer partnerships, and then enhancing visitor experience. So as people come into town, how can we promote the local businesses with things like a guide or special offers, and then be a little bit more on the nose with transportation and accessibility. As the MBTA offerings have come up, as long as we kind of tie that together with people, that seems to be a huge opportunity. So going into the audiences we aim to influence, so local Hullonians, the year-round residents are kind of the primary focus, but you'll see on the right-hand side, we also want to talk to summer residents. We're also looking to influence South Shore residents, so nearby communities who have the potential for frequent visits that we sometimes get off the list in the 10 months of the year that are not beach months. But also these bottom layer audiences have a lot of wallet to share, and how can we invite them here for an experience that matches what they're looking for. So urban tourists, Boston visitors, those visitors from the cities seeking a coastal escape, leisure travelers, so this combining work and leisure traveler, that is becoming more and more a phenomenon, especially as Boston becomes a trip for business. People are coming and then tacking on a day or two of their vacation, inviting their family to that location, or maybe even staying in a more scenic place versus staying downtown in Boston. And then the New England day tripper. So not a new audience, but how can we be on that list of people who are looking for that New England day trip? Underneath those, we also have lifestyle audiences that perfectly match what we have offered as a community, but might be a little disjointed if you don't know Hull intimately. So this campaign would aim to connect some of those offerings that we have that really speak to 3 hugely burgeoning audiences. Wellness travelers is a big trend that is expected to grow between a 7.2 and 12.4 CAGR over the next 5 years. And that is people who are looking to travel but have an experience of wellness and self-care. And we have such an immense way to do this. Not only is the ocean and Nantasket Beach a very unique offering, but our businesses really live up to this. So Holistic Health, Sanctuary Fitness, Oasis, Crave, Alchemy, Northeast Surfing, and then Bike, our Atlantic Cycles, we could offer a really great curated experience for that group. Pet travelers is a really large group that are traveling also. Looking at Jen Friedman here, with room with me, and then I put Sunshine up there also, but pet travel is really, is growing around like an 8 to 10% CAGR also. And then heritage tourism. So that used to be just a small sliver of tourists, and now that's growing in ages, which I'm sure you guys know, and that market is growing hugely. And as we have the Fort Revere restoration project, the Paragon Carousel has so much amazing work that has been done to it, not to mention the whole Life Saving Museum. We just have a huge offering that could really speak to that group. So the types of overarching campaign that we wanted to, when we were looking at what would we create, we want to own our one-of-a-kind views, our quirky beach vibe, our interesting people, our surprising history, and our ownable location. So how can we spur intrigue amongst day trippers, ignite pride amongst ourselves, Hullonians? How can we create friendly distinction within the South Shore, not in a combative or a aggressive way, but in a friendly distinction point? And then how can we create a campaign that's a bit of a content springboard? Because as we all know, the days of kind of a set it, forget it campaign of just putting it out there and people putting that is not really it. How can we create a challenge or some sort of idea that would spur content influencers and creators to create things that fit under this? So all of that work led us to a group source creative campaign with the tagline of "There is no place like Hull." And that was, I can pass around to add to confusion, but we had a long, about 4 or 5 months stint of going through a variety of different taglines that were group sourced, and then people voted on the different types of campaigns that spoke to them. This is from one of the members, the line came from there, but it really spoke to the uniqueness and our kind of coastal quirky charm, and also to the whimsy and the magic that a lot of people, when we were interviewing, spoke to. There's just something almost indistinctly unique about what we offer. And so There's No Place Like Hull came to the top. And we worked on a few different logo lockups. We, at this meeting, really would hope we can kind of peel back from the exact look, because we think that would be something that, as you guys move forward, would work with maybe finessing, giving your feedback on the actual look and feel of the campaign. So we can head to the next slide. There's No Place Like Hull. We put together a color palette that is indicative of Nantasket on sort of one of our beautiful sunset nights. And the idea would be to use all of the wonderful natural and historic assets that we have to make sure that when we're creating things, they bring and evoke that level of magic. The line would act as a campaign on the top, and then we would want to introduce different pieces of Hull combined in almost like a magazine-style editorial. So we can go to the next slide. The first piece of the campaign that we would recommend under There's No Place Like Hull is a printed visitor's guide. So something that is really nicely put together, can have a bit of a read to it. We added in, you'll start to see as we would go forward, we recommend to add that 3-wave logo. That wave is a part of the branding work that you guys have already been working on and is in the wayfinding and the different elements. So we think adding that in is a nice way to kind of keep things connected as we continue to expand Hull to other people. One of the major assets, though, is a printed visitor's guide that can be in Boston, could also be here, and maybe even distributed in other places, especially businesses, if they are willing. I would like to give a shout out to Judith Van Ham. That's her drawn map out there. So I always like to throw that in because it's very cute. The thought would be in spring and fall especially, offer up kind of almost like I said, magazine editorial style pages that combine different things from food to nature to business, and then put them in more of an editorial fashion so people kind of get excited about the different things that they could see. And in fall and spring, that's where people really need that push, because a lot of times people just think there's the beach. You guys can see it locked up a few different ways here. We have this fall, go to Hull, There's No Place Like Hull, and the hope would be that we would sort of combine a mix of heritage and commerce so that people would be inspired. The next slides are just to show that we feel like this has possibilities to come to life in a few ways. If you guys are in agreement with the strategy, the audiences, even the line, then we, however this goes forward, being funded or how it works, finalize that with your guys' oversight. But this is to show how that color palette could flex and really become something ownable for Hull. We wanted to kind of show that however we put it together, it doesn't have to be that sort of mid-century Pac-Man font that we first presented, which I love, but it is somewhat polarizing. And so I think it's important for, in the evaluation of this, people to kind of think how we want it to come to life. But I personally could see this one on the right on my bumper sticker, or on my bumper. I would put that up there. And they're all in the color palette that we showed. The next one, it's just another way to be illustrative of how this could come to life and really start to show our quirky coastal personality in a really neat, identifiable way. So going more onto the assets, the digital hub would be a huge recommendation along with the printed guide. They wouldn't be entirely identical, but they would be similar depending on what person would get their hands on what. So the digital hub would be a necessity, and we think on the digital hub especially, maybe with a partnership with MBTA, some prompts around Boston, around Logan. And this was an idea from Hannah Campbell, the intern who worked with us, but she went to SCAD, and Tybee Island is there, and they do a really good job of wayfinding from the airport to Tybee Island and really pushing people to let them know the Paradise is just a small boat ride away. So we would recommend that, and then an interactive map. So that could be a custom piece, but also is already being worked on heavily by Martin and Arena Davey, who are working on Hull Next. And they are amazing programmers and software designers who are really excited to put more work towards this if this committee and the Economic Development Committee want to go forward. So that's the digital hub. The next piece of the campaign that we would recommend would be influencers and a bit of a guide for them. So an influencer campaign, as I mentioned at the beginning, the days of magazine, print ads, and billboards are long gone. But this summer, we all kind of saw a few things of influencers coming to town and showing how wonderful it is to take a boat ride here and then have a day. But we have identified, and depending on how this goes forward, you can find more, about 50 of the top, what we would call like New England day trip influencers. The thought would be is once this campaign is finalized or put to approved, we would send them a bit of an inspiration influencers kit. So the way that this would happen in the basic marketing world is we put together a little box for them and we have their connection and we send that to them and then offer them, hopefully if the businesses are inclined, in-kind experiences for them to come and then report on their platform what they experienced. And that's usually a really positive way to get Hull and its experience into the feeds of people who would want to come here also, but in a trusted way, because that person has experienced it and is able to show that to them in their own words. So the influencer campaign is the part of that also. And then lastly, in regards to assets for this, going to the next page, thank you, Jason. This would just be continued work that we know that the businesses of Hull are excited to be a part of, but local experiences that we could launch with the campaign and with the influencer campaign. Things like unique drinks or menu items. It's ridiculous, but people will go an entire way just to have like a certain drink. And so we think that would be a good part of this year, just to have people have an Instagrammable way to be a part of things. And then, as we talked about at the beginning, if there are those events or experiences that we're creating for year 250 or for anything else, create a collaborative effort around that event. So if we know we have Endless Summer, we know we have the bonfire, I put in South by Southwest just to remind everyone that before South by Southwest, Austin was just another Texas town. And I'm not saying we're trying to become Austin, but we have opportunity to bring a lot of really interesting, creative people with money to spend here if we are able to kind of invite them for a big event and then show them around the town with it. So along with the printed guide, the digital hub, and the influencer campaign, we would recommend some unique local offerings and pop-up experiences. So that's a quick version of a lot of work, which again is not really done by me. I'm just the collator. This has been a really big group effort, which I'm really grateful for. And today we just wanted to see if you guys kind of are in that, if the rationale for why this campaign makes sense, if the audiences that we are talking about make sense, how do you feel about the tagline, the tactics, and maybe the timing. But to be determined would be the font and the look and the layout and some of those like specifics, as well as whom to execute the campaign with and how we would want to do that. And I'll let Sue kind of take some of that too.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'd be open to feedback, and, you know, like I said at the beginning of this, you know, we really would like to get, you know, a professional campaign off the ground for the town to really, you know, increase foot traffic into town and also to expand our season. And, you know, would love to see our hotel full spring and fall, and maybe even in the winter. And so I think I've seen some of you taking notes. Is there any feedback, anything you'd like to talk about with regard to this?
Before we open it to discussion, I just want to thank you and the committee for the incredible amount of work that went into this. I'm sure this a lot of people hours and research, so thank you very much for that and for the presentation. I'll open up to questions, concerns.
I guess I just have one. So we have a mix of the Chamber of Commerce and the EDC. Which body or board is going to tackle this project, or is it a combined one?
Yeah, I think how I would envision it is a combined effort. And so the Economic Development Committee would be the committee that helps with branding, the target audiences, and figures out the why. And the chamber and whoever is responsible for this is the actual deployer, the implementer, who keeps this ball rolling. And so we would be more defining things. Front.
I'm good right now.
Yeah, I just, you mentioned the 250th, which is coming up, and we have a committee working on that. Have you been coordinating with them or been in touch with them?
Not yet, but, as she said, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a line, so there's 3 different pillars, and so one is the events and such, and so we're fully expecting the 250th anniversary campaign to be launching a lot of those sorts of things while we're doing the marketing. But yeah, and once this gets approved, the first step is really we want to make sure that you're good with this campaign. If you have any tweaks to it, that we want to adjust that. But yes, then it's going to be something that we want to roll out to a lot of the groups in town. The 250th anniversary, the Pride Committee, all of these people who might be having events. Like, how can we pull this all together? Because if Pride is having an event, the marketing person's going to want to know about that, and we can, tailor that into some of the things that we're doing. Maybe pull some people in from Boston or another community to be able to come in for these special events. So it's really going to be combined.
Okay. Oh, Jason, sorry.
Yeah, I would also like to say thank you for the presentation, and I did see an earlier version of it when you presented to the chamber, and I really do like the Pac-Man font. I think it's actually really sharp and distinct, and there's a lot of I think the other images are nice and more pleasant, but you see a lot more of that now. That's, especially with like a ChatGPT type of visualization. I think it is quirky and distinct and bold, and just for what that's worth, I liked it then. I like it even more now. And I really like there is no place like Hull. I think that's really succinct. The fact that you already workshop that extensively, and I think all of that I think is great, and definitely have my endorsement. And I've also, you mentioned that Martin and Irina Davy are part of the task force group, and have definitely heard a lot from them from the very start when they started the Hull Next app, and I know that they're both still very much engaged and affirmatively reaching out and trying to get, some of the groups I'm on, information pulled into the system there in the app, and that is only, that volunteer help to develop, an app like that is amazing, and I know that they are doing it completely on a volunteer basis, and, fully endorse that as well as an outlet and a tool for moving this marketing piece going forward. So thank you very much, and job well done.
Irina Davis is on EDC.
Oh, yeah.
And so, one of the challenges we have is to figure out how to pull, these different things together, because you're right, they have an amazing app that is real time, lots of fun things that are going on in Hull, and so that's part of what we've got to sort of figure out is how to blend these things together so that the visitor doesn't see, these pockets of things that are all different areas of people, but that it's a consistent, consolidated sort of message that the end user gets.
Yeah.
Jen?
If I may, just do a couple of things. First, great work on behalf of the EDC and the Chamber and Erin. Just to remind, let me start with a question too. So I know you talked about the Hull's 250th campaign, and I know Susan, you're saying that's just one pillar in the overall presentation. So I would just really encourage both groups, both the Chamber and I don't know if Steve's his seat back there, is on the 250th committee to work in collaboration with them, because I think they are taking the lead on behalf of the town in terms of the 250th events and activities, and I'm sure they would welcome the assistance in a variety of ways from the chamber, whether it's financially or just manpower or setting up events. In terms of the overall branding, I know that you did incorporate the wave. I would just remind the board that the town did adopt a branding program a few years ago, and that has been implemented in a number of signage and the wayfinding program in town, and the waterfront access stenciling, the wave is going to be included. So I think it's also important to keep that consistency within the town so that a certain logo becomes identifiable with a certain community. There was no tagline that was adopted, so maybe that's a component that you can add on to the existing branding. And then just my other question was just around the funding. So I have a question and a comment, because I think, Susan, when we last spoke, part of, and I think, Jerry, what I understood part of this joint meeting was direction from the board to the EDC on things that they, what did the board want them to be focused on going forward? And while it's a great campaign, it's going to require funding. And so I think identifying potential funding sources should be, as my recommendation to the board, in terms of charge for the EDC on how to roll out a marketing campaign. And I don't know where you stand with the Business Improvement District, but that is one mechanism. And I know we have hopefully still the consultant that was willing to continue pro bono in order to continue and see that effort through. And that is a mechanism where the businesses pay into a fund that they then control to be used for things like marketing and events and the like. So just...
Yeah, I mean, the funding is definitely a piece that we wanted to talk to you about, because, if you want a campaign, of this magnitude, it's going to cost money. We're going to need to hire somebody who really knows what they're doing, because this isn't something that's really going to be sort of a volunteer, like they get to it when they get to it kind of thing. Like a campaign like this, especially when we're trying to really get Hull on the map. We're out in the middle of nowhere, right? And so we really want to get people to come here. It's going to be, a couple of years of really pinging the outside world, getting our foot in the door to these different places, and that takes talent. It's not just me calling up the Marriott in Long Wharf and saying, hey, can you put this in each room? No, it's going to be a professional person who knows how to do that, who knows how to do it right, and so funding is a key component. And so today we want to get this sort of approved, the marketing, the branding, the strategy of this is what we want to do. The funding is the next step in the process, and so I want to look to see if you have any suggestions on it. The bid, I know, is something that has been looked at over the last couple of years, and I think there's been some pushback, because I think the bid is focused on business owners, and not always the businesses itself. And so one of the other projects that we've been looking at is what other sorts of alternatives are there out there that the EDC and or the chamber could use to consolidate funds from the businesses in order to launch a decent campaign. And so that is something that we're looking at other communities and how other communities do this. Is it a combined? I know I went to an event in Yarmouthport a couple of weekends ago. It was a great event, and they got some funding from the town. They got about $135,000 from the town each year, and they said, and they dish it out like a grant to the different businesses to run events for the town, and that was a great thing. But we also need to look at, okay, how can the businesses participate? How much funding can we raise from the businesses? How much maybe we could get from South Shore Chamber of Commerce? Other avenues. And so if you are aware of any potential funding sources that we could explore, that would be great. But that's the next step, is to try to figure out how to fund this. Because I'm expecting, it to be about $80,000 to fund it for a year to really get it off the ground. Maybe a little more than that with, advertising and printed brochures and things, or visitor guides, things like that. But that's sort of what we're looking at. And I have a job description for a part-time person. It wouldn't be a full-time person, who would be the person in charge of this. And they would be in charge of it, but then they would all be part of a group that's EDC and Chamber combined. And so it's sort of what we're thinking about in terms of structure.
Great, thank you. Jerry?
Yeah, so we've had multiple meetings, obviously, and you're absolutely right. The committee is looking for really guidance from the town. To me, this is an economic development committee, right, that is seated by the select board. And it should be a complete partnership, right? And the funding, I'll be honest with you, I would anticipate some of the funding to come at some point from the town, because this is an important, I guess, avenue to try to attract visitors to Hull. And what that does is there's an inherent benefit to the town to do all that. We want to attract new business. We're not sure what kind, because it's a tough climate and all that, but this is one way to do that. And that might not be possible, right? It might require going to town meeting to ask for the funding and all that. But I think that's, if we're going to be honest, that's probably the expectation, to at least have it be partially funded by the town. And I think that's, that's a valid request. It may not be one that the people in Hull decide is in their best interest, and that's fine too. But, I think it's, again, to congratulate all the volunteer work that's been done. This is, I'll be honest, Jason, I don't have really good taste with colors and all that stuff, but I love the campaign. The only thing I didn't like was the font, and my suggestion was to just show it with some different fonts. And again, some of this stuff is really fantastic, right? And to me, all this stuff should be approved by the town, right? Because this is really, as you mentioned, it should match with the town's branding. It should have the town's full stamp of approval. It's going to be placed on marketing materials in conjunction with the chamber and everything else. And so, it's really I can't emphasize enough, I think the committee is looking for really good, detailed guidance from this board so we're not wasting our time in these meetings, because that's what we talk about a lot of different things, right? And how do you bring new business to Hull? That's really a super difficult problem. And so, providing some guidance on what we think the best plan is. And it might be volunteerism for the next year, right? We unfortunately might have to continue down this path and utilize. This is, again, phenomenal, because what this shows is there are a tremendous amount of people who are flocking to Hull who have career experience that is really, it works with some of the needs that we have. And this is a great example. And again, I think if we, I don't know what the answer is, but if we dig into the details, at least start with, I think, the branding, right? You brought up a really valid point. We don't want to have two different conflicting branding images out there, right? We should have one. So maybe that's a good place to start is, we go back and we look at, just the branding and come up with some options that include what you had mentioned and would be approved by the town and acceptable, and we maybe as a board vote on them.
If I may, real quickly.
Please.
I agree with that, and that's what I've tried. I think the wave is a part of it, but looking deeper into some of the pieces of the branding campaign that the beautification committee and other people have started to add, I think the lowest hanging, let's not lose anything that everyone else is using. So the wave to me feels really like this is just based on what I've seen and experienced. That's in there, that's here, and it's on a lot of things that people are seeing from the wayfinding. But I do think that exercise of going over that branding with what we have is important. And I just want to make sure this team knows, we're using the 250th as an anchor. This didn't start because of the 250th. This started because the businesses were getting together and saying, we are hungering for spring and fall business. And so that's why we started to pinpoint those lifestyle targets that would maybe want to come here, and then also not necessarily come and flood us on our busiest days, but come and be a part of that like scaffolding on the rest of the year. That's how the project started. I just feel like now in this form, when I see it, it feels very 250. And that's because we use that as the anchor. But this started from a goal of spring and fall shoulder season increase because the businesses were asking for it. So as you said, it could go on for a year of volunteerism and then move into something else. I don't want to get too caught up on the 250. If that's helpful, I felt like that became like a big part of this, but that is more because that is happening. It's a good time to launch it, but that's not how this all started. Just to help.
Sorry, if I could just respond to that. I think that is important because that committee it has already begun the planning and efforts, and because too often we have groups doing their own thing but doing the same thing, so I think coordinating with them is very important. And so I would just encourage the EDC and or the chamber back there to do that.
I'll get you a second, Steve.
Well, I just echo what Jen just said, but with that, I think the EDC and the chamber should kind of catch up to the 250th and make that be the focus, because there are a lot of planned events, and maybe use the energy now for that to make that very successful. But I was looking on the events and activities. When you talk about co-creation of events with businesses, now, most of our businesses are restaurants, and they're always working, trying to keep those things going. If there was a suggestion that I could make for you is do some kind of summit meeting with all the youth groups, all the civic groups, just see if they have ideas to bring forward, because I think a lot of people out in town have those ideas, but they don't know where to bring them, whatever idea it may be. So I think there would be a lot of value in, like when we had Park and Recreation, we called it a youth summit, and we had all the groups together and came up with a whole bunch of different things to move forward with. And I really think there needs to be an emphasis of just for us in town. Because if we do events on those shoulder seasons, and they're really fun events, they're gonna draw those other people in. But all that happens, I think, with bringing those other groups in to the mix. The more people we have, the more energy, the more ideas, and what's most important is more volunteers to get these things in motion. So I really think that's important.
Before we had a very patient person in the back there. Michelle, did you?
I actually, during the funding conversation.
I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself?
Sorry, I'm Jen Friedman. I'm the owner of Come With Me, current vice president of the Chamber of Commerce. Also involved in other groups in town like Rotary. So as far as the funding piece, I recently overheard some parents at the Hingham volleyball, at a Hingham volleyball game saying that they did a not so spooky Halloween that earned like $15,000 in four nights, 8 hours total. I don't see why we don't have that type of creativity here. As Jerry mentioned earlier, there are a lot of business professionals that have great ideas, great resources, and very interested and eager to help and participate in the community engagement. My father-in-law is one of them. I mean, he's very creative in the baking end, and he's always looking for new ways to improve different things in town, or if he goes to a restaurant in town and he's like, oh, this roll is kind of subpar, he's like, I should really talk to the chef. Like, he's very engaged, and he talks to everybody on the beach, and he brings in a body surfing community. Just on Malta Beach, in the 8 years that I've lived in Hull and have watched him body surf, he has taught pretty much everybody in that little area how to body surf. So, like Erin was saying, bringing in little micro tourists, body surfing is a perfect thing. And that summit that you were talking about could very easily be a body surfing summit or a body surfing competition or something like that. So there's just two very collaborative, easy ways, in my personal opinion, as a business owner, to really bring and generate some funds to go towards this effort.
Thank you, Jen. Stephen?
A couple things. Steve Greenberg, 23 T Street, and president of the Chamber of Commerce. I was on the 250th committee meeting last night. As I said to them, I'm looking forward to working with them as they set things up. Absolutely, I was very active in the 375th committee. Number one. Number two is, as an example, leading up to this program. You'll remember last year we put up, the Historical Commission put up the First Night Baseball, and the idea about that was as a target audience. So not only did we put that signboard up and get support from the Society of American Baseball researchers who helped fund that, but they then, and this is part of the plan, they then took those images and a story about Hull and put it into their newsletter, which went to 7,500 targeted, very, very finely targeted audience of people who we know will now include from their trip to Boston to see Fenway, to take a boat ride across to see the site of the First Night Baseball game. There are lots of other, the investment we're making in the first above-ground water tower, okay, which is a precursor to the buildings of skyscrapers, civil engineers. So a very clear focus going forward of targeting groups in, and many businesses love the idea, particularly of co-branding. And one of the things there is that when people put advertising out, they're going to do their own advertising. But if all of a sudden everybody has that, no place like Hull on the corner of their ad, all of a sudden that message keeps getting reinforced. And that's what we're looking for tonight, is for the board to say, please do it. The Chamber spearheaded it as a result of a recommendation from the recovery plan, the rapid recovery plan mentioned it, and we felt that we couldn't just open the doors and invite everyone to come to Hull, even as a targeted way, without passing it by the Economic Development Committee, and then from the Economic Development Committee to the Board of Selectmen. Your level of involvement is always appreciated, always welcome, all right? But the Chamber and I believe the EDC are more than have the power and the support to move this forward, and we just really would like you to support us and give us permission to go ahead and do it.
Great, thank you. Jen? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Jennifer. So Hull does do some events similar for fundraising purposes in the summer, the boosters and the carnival. The issue, and the EDC ran into this at one point, is who is, are you running projects and programs or doing more policy work or fundraising? So the issue is you could certainly do let's just call it a project for the moment, to fundraise. It's just who is running that project is the question. And I don't know if that's, again, potentially another collaboration between the Chamber and the EDC, but it's often a lot of work, which I'm sure you know.
Yeah, and I just want to make a point, kind of going back to what we were talking about before. We're talking about two things. We're talking about events, and then we're talking about marketing and branding. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that we make that delineation, because the events, we can get volunteers from different, organizations around town to help with that. But really the marketing and branding really needs to be, a focused effort by a person who knows what they're doing, professional. If we really want to bring people into town, we've got to put our money where our mouth is and really make it happen. I'm grateful that we have had, Erin's time, other people's time to really,
Hannah's time.
Yeah, pro bono
She's just such
to
a boss.
deliver what we're bringing you today. But I don't think she wants to be doing this, or, not to say that, we'll decide who the who is later on. But I don't think she wants to be doing all this for free for the next 2 years. And so that's why, I really want to think long and hard about really funding this. And I think once we get off the ground, I think there'll be some initial, like really establishing ourselves, and then we can probably dial it back or, find other, people to be able to assist. But you look at things like the Plymouth Thanksgiving event, that's a huge success. Situate Heritage Days, Levitate, they all have professionals that really got those things off the ground, and once they're established, then they become more turnkey. But right now, I think we really need to be able to, to really invest in this.
Thank you.
And we started, oh, I'm so sorry, Jason, I'm so sorry. We started with the prompts, so there's like events that become things, but also Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Committees both were part of two major campaigns that I love that are illustrative of this. So the I Heart New York campaign, that was a rebranding campaign in the 80s after they had so much perception of violence and crime, and they wanted people to come back, but they also wanted to instill pride of people who lived there, who were like, I still love New York. I'm here for a reason. And so I Heart New York came from then, and then Keep Austin Weird is another one that we used as our inspiration. And we chose audiences that wouldn't flood us on our most busy days. That's why some of those audiences are important, because one of the big things we heard from a collective group here is that, like, we don't want a bunch of more people. We don't always want a bunch of more people. So that's why we picked some audiences and a tagline that would help with that perception and be loved by people who are here, but really intriguing to people who are on the outside. So some of the things she had said, I just wanted to kind of bring that to life, why we didn't just do like a 250 years whole. Mm-hmm. We thought about it with some of those other, like, similar cities have gone through challenges like us many times.
Mm-hmm. Can I
Just, Jason?
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
No, I was just going to say, I think if we do this right, the event part of this is going to come. We create enough buzz, we get enough people who are really stoked about what's happening in Hull. We're going to have a problem with coordinating events as opposed to bringing them in. They're going to want to come here and do events. So I think the first initiative really has to be this. And then the second, as we grow the program, I think the event thing, which will require a lot of volunteers, no doubt, but I think a lot more businesses, people from outside Hull are going to want to come in. So I think that'll take off, but I think it starts with this program first, with the branding and marketing.
Good, thank you. Are you ready now? Or?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Just taking this all in, I think maybe this is my thought and recommendation, and maybe I can convert it into some kind of motion. But, like I said at the beginning, definitely feel comfortable kind of endorsing this. I'd say endorsing the "There is no place like Hull" tagline. Definitely endorsing it with the understanding that we should integrate existing wayfinding as the design piece. I wouldn't say we need to kind of figure out font or logo stuff here. I mean, that would be a combination of what you guys take back and then maybe bring it. And then something Susan said about, you started some rough estimating about what this would actually cost in bringing a professional. And so maybe the next step from here, as you all meet, and keeping things, like you were saying, I remember with EDC, it's, this is fantastic. You've figured out a thing that we should focus on, and it's a great thing, to do an integrated marketing and branding strategy. So focusing on that, and then, teasing that out more of what that, profile of that person, of that professional assistance looks like. And then, like you said, South Shore Chamber of Commerce, what existing businesses are willing to chip in, mass development for grant opportunities, Mass Cultural Council, maybe the person who has been helping us with the bid, we could have some ideas, anything that's sourced from the local rapid recovery plan, the consultant office. What's that?
MOBD, the state.
But actually, the committee can take those steps to investigate the deadlines for all these grants, the sources from them, and then the question you'll probably have to decide each time is, is that something that the chamber is going to apply for, or something that the EDC is going to try to apply for through the town with Christy Orio's support, with the select board support. But that might depend on the grant type. But spending the next say 6-9 months, and working with the 250th committee only because they have money. They have $100,000, right?
No.
No, they have. I thought the 250th committee got the grant. Oh, they didn't get the grant. Oh, all right. Well, never mind. So, but I mean, still work with them for all of this. But then, and then, you know, if it's like 6-9 months in the fall, like working towards that in the fall, and then we do another update meeting and see where things are at and where that has been in terms of visualizing what that marketing plan looks like, how the grant success has been, what the actual, you know, thing might be, and if there's some kind of funding gap, but there's some kind of matching that you've taken on, we can start having those discussions early enough to consider for something for next year's budget cycle. So that would be my recommendation, and I'm happy to frame it in terms of a motion, but I know Jerry and others want to speak.
Jerry?
Yeah, just really quickly, I guess the way I look at this is the marketing plan that's being discussed here is more of a very long-term, you know, the next 20, 25 years. This is going to be the branding and the logos and the taglines that you'll see on pieces that are used in, you know, online social media stuff, on menus at restaurants maybe, you know, that kind of stuff. And it's important, like I said, that it is approved by the town, and it includes all the things that were mentioned here, you know. But the 250th, I agree. I think we should meet with them. I think it's important to have at least a logo. It probably makes sense to have it established. It'd be a great time to roll it out. The event's in July, but that's, again, the 250th is going to come, extremely important event, but it's going to come and it's going to be gone in July, right? And then that event passes. So what this group is talking about is really just establishing a more long-term structural framework for, you know, marketing, branding, all this kind of stuff to do all this attraction of people, events.
Yeah.
Brian?
So I echo what everybody else up here said about the time that you put in. Thank you so much. And I'm kind of on a listening campaign tonight, and thank you, Jen and Stacy, for getting us that information into our email boxes days before. And so you can really, you know, dive into it, as opposed to just, you know, initially seeing it tonight. So my thoughts is, I go to the Vineyard every year, so I know we're talking about apples and oranges, but when I go there, I'm a visitor. You know, and I think that the visitor guide that you brought up is key. You can't go 100 yards over there without bumping into that same booklet, whatever you call it, a guide. And some of them are that big. And again, I assume they're paid for majority-wise by the businesses. So we don't have those. We don't have the multiple businesses that they do. So, yeah, you know, but I also see, too, is, you know, you were saying something about the pet campaign where you can let people bring in their pets. What's huge down the Vineyards is children, you know? So I think what my opinion would be is if you wanted to circle back and add, like, things more for the kids. I know, you know, I have 2 grandkids now, and one of them goes out on it's kind of like a captain fisherman's boat, you know, and I'm trying to think, it's they're a captain, and then, you know, there's little guys walking around with one wooden leg and everything else, you know.
That's the pirate thing.
Correct, the pirate thing. Thank you. So, and you know what it is? It goes by every half an hour. You're at a restaurant, and there's 40, 50 kids out there, and they got all their things on, and it's like $40, $50 a piece. You know, so it's a business there. I think, you know, that people go over there, and that would be an attraction for kids. So I'd like. I mean, they go out. I don't know. We don't have any farms in Hull, but I mean, they go out and see the llamas once a year. You know what I mean? So it's things like that where you can think outside the box, because a lot of people nowadays, especially with kids and grandkids, and they love to spend money on kids. You know, so yep, that's my 2 cents.
So if I could ask, what you're asking from us today is approval to move ahead with the campaign as you've presented it?
The strategy and the branding and the tagline.
So you're asking for a specific approval of the tagline, and then to give approval to...
And the campaign
and the
elements
campaign.
also. Sorry, Sue.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the campaign elements. And then I think it would be, yeah, I mean, our conversation, of course, just being like open kimono is like, maybe the select board will have money to fund this. And I know that's not it, but the question is, are we all, if the Economic Development Committee is on board, the chamber's on board, the businesses are on board, I think what we want to do is all be on board and then, and approve it to move forward for us to now go into a funding discovery phase, is
I
what I
think
would think.
what's pretty clear, we're not in a position to approve any funding today, but we could approve the concepts of the plan that you've presented to us here tonight. So what I'm asking is that what you're looking for at this point?
Yes,
I'll make
the
a motion.
campaign elements of this, of what was discussed.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, before we do that,
everything, yeah.
Jen, is there something you wanted to?
No, I just let Erin will share.
She just wanted to make sure that we could, as we continue to share this out, if the motion is approved, we'd be able to share that this is approved by you guys, and so now it's like a continuing handshake. We have EDC, we have the chamber, we have you guys. So as we share it, would that be, is that the right way to frame it?
And I
Okay.
think that it's important to show our audience that we are in alignment and we want to work together to help and continue the upward momentum of Hull.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the concepts as presented tonight, including the tagline, with the addition that the existing wayfinding elements, specifically the wave, continue to be integrated in anything that's designed and distributed.
Seconded.
Okay. Moved by McCann, seconded by Taverna. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you so much. And that's a well-deserved round of applause for the people that worked on it. All we did was approve it. But we look forward to working with you as this moves forward. And again, congratulations on a tremendous amount of work that you put in. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
As a citizen, I just want to say how
Where do you live?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Rebecca Sachs. I live at 8 Kenton Ave. And as a citizen, I just want to say how exciting I find this, because Hull is still a secret. And people come here all the time and completely flip out that this even exists. And, you know, I sell a lot of stuff on Facebook Marketplace. The other day I had someone drive 2.5 hours to buy something, and then they said, "What is this place? I never even heard of it, and this is so amazing." And I said, "You haven't even seen it all, because all they did is drive through the main drag and up Allerton Hill." I said, "There's so much to it." But people still say, "What?" when you say Hull. So this town so badly needs this visibility and information to be out there.
The other side of that is often when I say where I live and I tell them Hull, and people go, "Oh, that's so beautiful."
Yeah, if they know, they
One or the
know.
other.
Yeah.
It's one or the other.
Yeah, if they know, they know.
That was a tagline option. Hull, if you know, you know.
I like this one better.
If I could just respond quickly, Mr. Chairman, to some of the negative commentary, which, you know, and I grew up here, right, from the early 70s. And Brockton
by the sea,
from
yeah.
by the sea, and we've heard it all, you know. But Hull was a very hard scrabble place, like most seaside communities, because a big family could always buy a house here, you know. One could argue right now that the secret's out, and that's simply based on the real estate values.
Oh, I think so.
Much more, but there's
Yeah.
still.
No, you're right. There's a lot of people
still
that come here
invisibility.
and totally unaware of it. They still think it's down by the Cape and all that kind of stuff. So.
Okay. Again, thank you so much. Much appreciated, and we look forward to working
Thank you.
with you as this goes forward. We're going to move on to the next item. Next is the preliminary budget proposal by town manager and town accountant.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. I just want to first take a minute to acknowledge and thank Town Accountant Mike Buckley, who's with us this evening, and then Jason Frady, Chair of the Advisory Board, and Dave Clinton, member. Just a member.
That's all?
I'm sorry.
That's all?
I'm never just a member. From the advisory board. So this presentation is really the 30, maybe 40,000 foot level preliminary budget presentation to the board and the community. What I want to cover this evening is just review the fiscal calendar, and along with that, just in an effort to continuously educate the board, the community, anyone else who may be watching, what the budget process, the municipal budget process looks like. As I go through the calendar, talk about a few fiscal year 27 budget assumptions, review fiscal year 26 highlights and updates, and then lastly, look forward to some FY27 operational and capital expenditure updates, and then just quickly go over the next steps. I'm not sure why it's... Is it advancing? Can I just see the keyboard for a second? Sorry, guys. So just to review the fiscal calendar, so municipal fiscal year runs from July 1 through June 30th. And the fiscal year, I know this trips a lot of people up, is always the year in which the fiscal year ends. So we're talking about FY27 because it'll be ending June 30th of 2027. It really begins in November, where we set, and this board and the Board of Assessors did set the tax rate for the upcoming fiscal year. And as well as internally, we begin with requesting departmental budgets, and this year capital requests in a slightly different way than we had in the past. And that is a result of establishing the capital planning committee so that we can create and develop a 5-year capital improvement plan for the town. In December, we begin, which is where we're at currently, we begin our budget and capital request meetings. Mike, Stacy, myself, and I, as well as our assistant town accountant, Kristen Curran, meet individually with each of the department heads to review their requests, their budget requests, and then their capital, any capital items that they may also be seeking in the upcoming fiscal year. At that time, I ask them for everything that they'd like to see in their budget. Mike does his magic and work and puts those numbers into the overall budget. We pretty certainly end up over what our last budget, our anticipated budget would be, and that's where we begin subsequent meetings with department heads and really start diving into the budget itself to get to a balanced budget. January and February, those conversations continue with the department heads. It also begins the conversations with the advisory board, so as we get to a more certain budget within each department, they present that budget to the advisory board, which is equivalent to the town's finance committee. And that committee dives into sort of a check and balance on the process, the budget process. They dive in to the individual budgets and ask the department heads, myself and the town accountant, a number of questions. They look out for any changes or spikes or drops in a budget and look for explanations. And if I may, I don't know if Dave or Jason want to add anything to that piece of the process.
I think you got it pretty well. We go through both the spending and the salary side of each department's budget, what they're looking for, and especially also any capital needs that they have, the fire department needing ambulance, fire trucks, and also try to pull out from the departments like what their anticipated needs are going down the road, just so that we have that in our mind as we're approving an ambulance this year. We may need to approve another one in 2 years, and then a fire truck in 5 years, and talk about the lead time that it takes to get equipment. Fortunately, cruisers are a lot easier to get a hold of than fire equipment, but we go through all that with each department, as well as like the DPW, going through the equipment they have. Do they have all the plows they need? How is that aging? You know, our town does a great job of taking care of our equipment. You know, having you know, qualified people in DPW to do that. You know, they save us a lot of money by keeping the equipment in good condition, running. You know, going through how is utilization of the library, what things are happening at the senior center, so that we know and they have a chance. I mean, our department heads have a lot to be proud of, and we're happy to hear the things that they're doing to make Hull better. You know, I would hope this year that, you know, we might be considering some funding for, you know, this is me as an individual saying this, but I'm hoping that we might be considering some money from somewhere, free cash or somewhere else, to help to get this marketing campaign kicked off. I want to see, like, you know, stickers going out to people, because we have got, you know, hundreds of people that take the ferry and, you know, go out into Boston, and we could be carrying this tagline with us everywhere we go. So I think it's some great work that you guys have done, and we hope to, you know, maybe be seeing you guys come in this year. So we
Budget
just
process, Dave. Jason. Budget process.
yeah, as part of the budget process, you know, we'd love to hear, you know, there's a lot of competing needs in town as well, and we know that there's, you know, a lot of infrastructure, public safety needs that come first, school needs come first. So, you know, Jen does a great job, and she's done a great job in the past couple of years of realigning the budget and where resources are actually spent and used, to make sure that you know, it's very transparent. And it's taken some work. It's taken a lot of work, I think, to get to that point. But it gives us a better view of what's happening, and gives the residents of Hull a better view of where their dollars are being spent. So it's been a tough process with a lot of questions, and but I think we're getting very, very close to where we want to be with that realignment that's been done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other new addition this year will be department head meetings with the capital planning committee to better understand the capital requests. And the information that's shared in those meetings and that have been shared to date are what are those actual capital requests from the department heads? Have they identified potential funding sources for those items? So anywhere we can find funding outside of our local dollars, we encourage and will encourage departments to seek that, whether it's through a grant fund or, for example, the sewer department has access to low-interest loan borrowing, things of that nature. Just to kind of tuck in there, the end of January, we also keep an eye out for the governor's budget, which gives us some indication as to what the state dollars are that will be delivered to the local community. That is a component of the local budget. The governor's budget is due by the end of January, and it begins the process at the state level. By the end of February, March, we then have some more indication relative to state revenues. We've refined our budget and we'll have arrived at a final balanced budget at that point in time. And likely in March, maybe late February, I will present the final draft budget to the select board and community. May is where the rubber meets the road, and town meeting ultimately approves the annual town budget. And then in June, we close the books on the prior fiscal year. So when we talk about the components of the budget and the assumptions that we make, there are one of the biggest variables are state aid. So we receive Chapter 70, Chapter 90, and UGA, which is also unrestricted general government aid and local receipts. Aside from the local receipts, Chapter 70, 90, and UGA comes from the state. Chapter 70 are funds that we get through the state that help fund our schools and school department. Chapter 90 are roadway and infrastructure funds, and the unrestricted general government aid has the most flexibility at the local level. And then our local receipts. For local revenues and state revenues, they comprise the majority, if not all, actually all of the budget. So the tax levy represents about 72% of our revenues. State aid comes in typically at about 14%. I think this year we're anticipating a very conservative number from the state, both at the state level and for many local municipalities. They're starting to see quite a fiscal crunch. I'm confident we're in a comfortable position, but it's definitely something that we're keeping a very close eye on. Excise taxes comprise about 14% of the budget, as do ambulance receipts, which when we increased staffing and brought in the second ambulance online here in Hull, we've realized the anticipated increase in ambulance receipts to support that decision, and I'm happy to report out that, in fact, that has come to fruition. Building permits continue to remain high, and there's still a pretty steady amount of new growth, which benefits our budget and the community. On the expense side, what we're anticipating in terms of the larger increases and higher expenses are health insurance. We were told to budget in a 10% increase from Plymouth County, where we participate in the Mayflower Health Insurance Group, and that's a pretty significant increase overall. Pension liability, that is due to increase about 4% in the coming fiscal year. The good news there is that we are on track to be fully funded by approximately 2030. Collective bargaining in the upcoming fiscal year, we have one outstanding CBA that will be bargained, and that is with the library union. Local assessments, those are annual assessments from the MBTA, which is a fairly steady assessment. SHREC, which is our regional dispatch and emergency communication center, and the charter school. We're actually, I understand, seeing a bit of a decline in the charter school assessments. And then capital projects. This one, keeping a very close eye on. We have a number of significant capital projects in the queue in the next coming years. Things like the public safety, joint public safety facility, whether that's one facility or a facility in a substation, we're going through that feasibility process as currently. Manomet and Samoset, I think, I'm not sure if all the board members, I know a few board members were at the presentation. That'll be a significant project. Crescent Beach seawall, it's anticipated that we will likely have to contribute some additional funding to that project as we plan to move forward, picking up the work after the recent settlement on the Crescent Beach seawall project. Those are just a handful of capital projects in the queue, and I'll talk a little more specifically about anticipated FY27 anticipated expenses. I wanted to provide an update and highlight some of our FY26 expenditures and things that we have accomplished. So I think it's really important not only for everyone to understand the budget process, because it's something that impacts every taxpayer in Hull, but also just, as frequent reminders as possible as to what we are advancing throughout the town and where we are spending our dollars. So in FY26, we funded, well, let me back up a little bit. The board adopted fiscal policies, and those are being implemented, some of which were already in process and had, were normal everyday procedures, but we sort of just formalize that by creating the overall policy. One of the more active components, new implementation, is the capital improvement planning. In past town meetings and budgets, we established an injured on duty fund, unemployment workers' compensation fund, and employment liability fund accounts. And then we also established a grant match fund. So all of those are securities for us going forward in these areas that we've seen expenses year over year, but are fairly unpredictable. Please. In terms of coordination, so I talked a bit about some of the significant capital projects that the town will be facing in the upcoming years. There is a very significant amount of work that's been ongoing and has been accomplished in the past few years and beyond. But one of the things that really needs to be focused on as we move forward is coordinated planning, and that's the second group there. So this board adopted the Town of Hull Integrated Goals and Objectives, where the board set out the priorities for the upcoming year. That also was compiled with input from town staff relative to what we referenced as strategic objectives. That really reflected all the ongoing work that was happening and work that was in progress and upcoming for the next year. Now that it's been adopted, that's one of the guiding plans we have to help guide our fiscal and prioritization decisions, whether it's at the staff level or capital planning level or for the advisory boards information as budgets are presented to them. The other thing that's happening, and this is being led by the planning board, is Hull's master plan, and that will provide a roadmap for the next 10 years for the town, and that will also be an overarching document to help us coordinate and prioritize, again, those project and fiscal decisions. On the capital side, over the past, or in this current fiscal year, we've had a number of projects on the IT side, so we've brought on online permitting and asset management software through a software company called OpenGov, which I'd like to continue to build out over the upcoming years. We implemented SeeClickFix, which is a portal that residents can use to report issues in town, whether it's potholes, a broken streetlight, signs. We are currently upgrading the town website, and hopefully we'll roll that out end of January, maybe early February. And I think there'll be a lot of improvements realized with that project. Public safety, we did bring in some police vehicles. I know Jason referenced earlier. We also purchased a rescue ambulance and engine. Unfortunately, the supply chain on the rescue side is far longer than it is on the police vehicles, and so we have the police vehicles. We are still awaiting the ambulance and engine. On the infrastructure side, we are getting ready to begin the Draper Ave pump station rehabilitation, which will be a tremendous relief to that neighborhood. We are moving forward with the Manamet and Samoset Avenue design projects. We're also installing and purchasing new columbariums for the cemetery. And then on the operational side, we completed in the past or current fiscal year the successful bargaining of 2 additional collective bargaining agreements. And then we also had some staff increases, specifically 2 additional firefighters to help support their new shifts and that bringing that second ambulance online, which has provided a tremendous amount of benefit and relief to that department and the community in turn. 1 additional full-time police department staff member, and we have increased not necessarily new staff, but hours for library staff. And then looking forward to fiscal year 27, some of the anticipated operational and capital expenses. On the operational side, as I mentioned earlier, we have the library collective bargaining that we will be undertaking in the next couple of months. Staff increases that are being sought right now are Hull Fire for an additional 2 firefighters. If the board recalls, we were sort of phasing in the additional staff so that the department can reach its full complement. of staff members and support its shift changes, or its change in shift numbers. And then an increase, we've had a number of departments request not necessarily additional staff, but additional staff hours to support the work that they are currently doing. For example, our community service officer that works with our veterans is working well beyond the 2 days that he's currently budgeted for, and so he's seeking an additional day. The Board of Health is also looking to move inspectional services back in-house and is looking to do additional work. And so some staff changes in that department, and those are just 2 examples. On the capital side, we still need to plan for the closure of this current town hall building. But as a reminder, we're not entirely closing, so there will be some town hall building maintenance items that will need to be addressed, and those include the roof on this building and boiler replacement or boiler replacement in some other fashion for the police department.
Can I just ask about the roof? Because we just did a pretty substantial repair to get that tight.
So we did some securing of the slate tiles, but it wasn't the roof. The roof needs to be replaced.
It didn't address all the leaks, basically?
No, not at all. I shouldn't say not at all. It's secured. At that point in time, the issues were, or the concerns were the slate tiles coming loose. So we did an evaluation of the tile and then had them secured. But the roof will need to be replaced.
It's just one of those, it's a question because, you know, the decision on what happens to this building is yet to be made.
Correct.
And to put a new roof on it when it might be ripped out.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, but unfortunately that's what I was handed, and it's not something that we can ignore because we will still have staff in this building, and we certainly don't want it to become a hazard. With the current slate tile, it might not be, we're getting quotes right now, they're anywhere from upwards of $500,000 to $1.5 million. I don't anticipate doing a new slate tile, roof, not knowing what the disposition of this building will be, but it does require repair. I also spoke a little earlier about just continuing the general government software improvements for staff, and some of which will interact with the public. Seawall repair and maintenance. I also noted the Crescent Beach seawall is what I would anticipate as a next seawall project to be completed. This is an item that will likely be on our capital list for many years to come. I believe the overall seawall and access point repair estimate is about $365 million if everything throughout town were to be tackled. So just to put it into a little bit of perspective and why it's important to keep that on year after year. We have some requests for public safety equipment for both police and fire departments. The public safety facility design, that would be the next step in the public safety facility. Once a location and the option for that build-out is decided, we will then need to design it. That has a fairly significant price tag to it. And there'll be more public presentation and information on the public safety building over the next couple of months. That feasibility study is in the community engagement and outreach phase right now. And then I would like to continue to, I have established, but this should have been, continue to increase the capital stabilization fund as well as the general stabilization fund. The next steps in the process, as I also discussed, is to continue to refine the FY27 budget, develop and complete that 5-year capital improvement plan, the department meetings with the advisory board, capital planning committee. It's a little duplicative, but then ultimately finalize the FY27 budget, The select board will sign the town meeting warrant, which will include the annual budget, and then present the budget for approval at the annual town meeting, which this year is scheduled for May 4th. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions unless, anything to add? Nope, okay.
Thank you for the presentation. Just going back to the capital list there, we had our, latest capital planning meeting last night. So timing-wise, it seems like this year, like in the prior 2 cycles, you've already kind of identified things for capital expenditures that we should be doing for fiscal year '27. So then it does seem like the prioritization process that we'll do as a committee and reviewing all the possible project requests will start for fiscal year '28 then, right?
Not necessarily. So what I listed in here were things that have either come in, so again, remembering that this is the first year in a very, very long time that we're creating that 5-year plan. So we're at a starting point, and we're following a process that's partially new and partially continuation of what we have done in the past. And so department heads have provided us what they would like to see happen in the next fiscal year. And some of the items on here, like the public safety facility, I think we'd want to keep, I would hope that the committee wants to keep or supports keeping those projects moving forward, because you don't want to have gap years in a project like that. It's only going to increase the cost of the project and, kind of start over. You're almost starting from scratch every time you need to do community outreach on them.
I guess I'm just thinking, based on our discussion last night, there could be a little cart before the horse here, right? Because where we're at with the committee is we've received most of the department requests, but not all, and, there's still follow-up information, and then meetings we have to have, and then, we started talking about this, the thinking that, obviously not every capital need that the town has is going to come from a department, right? So we were having an open-ended discussion about the fact that there are other capital needs that the town has that have been discussed in other outlets that aren't necessarily going to be elevated by a town department, by the fire department, by the police department, by DPW. And so seeing this now and seeing, kind of a proposal of a certain list of priorities, which makes sense because that's what we have been doing the last 2 years. I think, it's something we can bring back to the capital planning committee. I know we're meeting again on January 8th, but seeing that you've identified already a few things that are of such high urgency right now, particularly in talking about the town hall building roof and things like the public safety facility design, it just kicks me back again to, this thing about launching this 5-year capital plan, right, is that we haven't done one in a very long time, and then even when we did it before, it was done with a completely different process, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like I emphasized last night, I want to make sure that when we launch it, we do it with as much comprehensive thinking as possible, meaning not necessarily everything that is already in the process ready to go that next step, something like the public safety facility design that we know kind of needs to happen, and more just being able to take the time to fully look at everything that could possibly be out there when we set our 5-year plan. So it's just something I'll bring up here because it's interconnected, but it's something I'll also bring up in January. And since we have advisory committee members here as well, that it's seeming to me more and more that maybe the right time to launch a 5-year capital plan is fiscal year 2028, and to kind of keep, the system we have been doing these last couple of years that are extending off of existing priorities that you have, so that we make sure we're launching a 5-year plan that is alterable and changeable and all that good stuff. But it's also meant to be, the way the charter reads, like you do this big 5-year plan looking at everything. And I don't want to make a 5-year plan that isn't inclusive of as much as possible of all the, we keep reiterating, we have so many capital needs, but if we make the mistake of excluding some big ones because they're not just quite ready for discussion, they haven't elevated the right way, even if they're not ready to do, then I think we're doing a disservice to the process. So seeing this pushes me even more in that direction, just to kind of give a headline of I think we might need more time to launch that. And putting it out into the public land and for you all as well, based on where we've all been at with this process.
Yeah, and like we've discussed a lot, the capital plan is fluid. So something could come up in a given, within that 5-year period where we have to address it, and it should be it should be added to the plan. The other thing to remember is the capital plan isn't solely funded by town dollars. And so as we look at this list, I think that we have a pretty comprehensive universe of capital, potential capital projects already, that we are also identifying funding sources for them. So the general government software, for example, there might be, that might be able to be funded by the community compact. And so we would, say, okay, let's advance that in this coming year because it aligns with the grant program, and we'll submit for the grant, but it might not be included in our actual budget. Where something like the seawall repair or Crescent Beach, we may need to do it. So it's different levels of funding source, and just as a reminder for everyone, if it's on the capital plan, it has a lifespan of 5 years or greater and at least a minimum threshold of a $50,000 cost.
Yeah.
So
no, and all of that
think-
process-wise makes complete sense to me. I'm more thinking of the process that you've set up for us that other towns do, which is good, fiscal practice. I'm talking about the prioritization piece that the committee is charged with. And the prioritization that the committee is charged with should, for when we launch that first 5 years, that first big one, take into account as much as we possibly can think of in terms of possible capital projects that are out there, even if it's to say this is not ready for ranking or prioritization because we don't have enough information on it, but we do know we need it because we have been talking about it. And that's I said this last night, but I'm just saying it because it integrates with the budget process, and I do want to foreshadow that. I think I'm really thinking more and more that we just need more time to go through that. And I think what you've done in the last couple of years of, flagging for us the things that are most urgent has made sense, right? I mean, of course, the public safety facility is building off of what we've done previously. Of course, if we have a timely grant for general government software, but when we do the process of prioritizing, going through hundreds of possible projects, I want to make sure we're doing it comprehensively to the service of the town as a whole. So that's all. But and then I did have one other question, but I forgot what it was about. But anyway, if anybody else has any other things.
Any other questions or comments?
Good.
Just clarification on the public safety facility design, is that police and fire?
yes.
Oh, I remember my other question. One of the things in the integrated goals and objectives, when we talked about it, one of my top 3 things, and I kept it very broad, I don't know but I just want to make sure to flag it, maybe you haven't had the discussion, was the DPW operational funding. And a lot of this came out of, conversations we've been having over the last year, particularly as it relates to, beach cleaning and the limitations of the DPW, but also many other DPW functions that they do where the solution might not be covered necessarily by additional, it might not just be as simple as a staff request. It's kind of and that would fit into operational anyway, right? But just making sure to flag that for conversations you're having with Chris and John.
I lost, but flag what?
Whether there's additional, I think the way we phrased it directly in the integrated goals and objectives was for operations and finance, evaluate operational funding for the Department of Public Works as part of the 25-26 integrated goals and objectives.
Cindy Borges, Nantasket Avenue, and I'm a member of the planning board. I just was late to the meeting and I was listening to it on the way, so I missed a lot. I just want to make clear because this is actually something I brought up at the town meeting about not having a past 5-year plan, and everybody said that's not something that, we have had one, but I agree with what Jason's saying, because as a member of the planning board, we've seen nothing come through about any kind of capital planning so far this year. And on the master plan, as far as that goes, we haven't even been, nothing, the master plan is not even clear to us what phase we're going to be in at that point of town meeting. I don't know that at town meeting we're going to be ready to do the capital plan.
I just think that maybe it would be a good idea to have the capital planning committee present something in advance or to the public, because there's nothing on there's no information about what projects you're looking at. I heard there is a list that is being prioritized, but we have really no idea. So for the next 2 years, what's coming up, or is that going to be taken off of the, like, when were those decided on which capital items to move forward with that? Is that through the capital improvement committee right now? That's what you guys are working on for the planning for this coming up meeting?
No, somewhat. So let me just, I know you said you missed the beginning, and one thing that I said is as for all of us as we go through these processes, is it's really, and it's been very clear to me that it's really important to educate the community on what those processes are so that we can all move forward in a productive, informed manner. So relative to the capital plan, that there's not a role, not that, you know, we won't share this information, but there's not a role for the planning board in capital planning. I mean, honestly, it really lies with the town manager's office and to some degree the select board's office, or the select board within the budget. As it relates to the master plan, what I had referenced, and you know, the planning board, I referenced that the planning board is leading that charge, and I think you guys have had some great progress on it. You are working with an excellent, top-notch organization in advancing that plan, but that will be a plan that, when completed, helps inform all of us on any fiscal or capital or project-related decision, because that should be developed with significant, and you know, we've talked about this, it's been very important that that master planning process have above all exceptional community outreach, because it should be representative of the priorities identified by the community, because it then becomes the roadmap for the next 10 years. And it covers, you know, for those who aren't aware, the master plan covers affordable housing, transportation, open space recreation. I forget what else I'm leaving out here. It covers pretty much everything that encompasses a community. Yeah. So does that answer your question, Cindy?
Somewhat. I just don't think that I can't picture myself how by May, you know, this will all be, we're going to have a capital plan. Everything's going to be, I feel like it's all going to come up to us. And I don't know how there's time for all the prioritization of these really major plans, because I didn't see the light plan and the DPW on this.
This is just a selection of, this isn't an all-encompassing list. And the Capital Planning Committee also has just received the full list of requests from this year, and that also includes some of these larger projects like the joint DPW light facility project, the two-way road project, Manomet-Samoset.
Yeah, okay, because I didn't hear the two-way road, and I was going to ask about that one.
Do you want to mention the website, though?
Oh, yeah, so there's also, we're upgrading the website, but we also have a Capital Planning Committee page on the current website that we'll be building out with all of the information that you're hearing tonight, and then just some general capital planning information for people to understand the process.
So all the lists that the current list that you're working on will be on that capital planning page? Great. Great.
Hi, Dave Clinton, member of the advisory board. I would also note that any capital planning as part of a budget review process will go through the advisory board for our kind of review and weigh in on those items. So I would encourage people, I know I say this all the time, we often sit in these seats to empty seats here. So I would encourage people to make note of those open meetings that are publicly advertised, and Jason does a great job of putting in what topics we're going to be talking about that evening. But just know we'll probably spend a night or two just in capital planning, as well as other things probably that night as well, just so we don't get bored. But we will look into all kinds of things, funding mechanisms, schedules, 5-year, 10-year, 15 bonding schedules, that kind of thing. So, so you have a myriad of places that townspeople can go to get all this information prior to town meeting.
Prior to town meeting.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just have one more comment on the advisory meetings, which I do attend. It would be really helpful if you had extra copies of what you're discussing for the public that attends, because that's not always the case at all. And it's not really helpful to sit in the audience and not know what's being discussed or have anything to look at to refer to.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the budget? Great. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Presentation. Okay, next is the opening of town warrant for 2026 town meeting. Just wanted to quickly go over the dates as we move forward. Today, the select board votes to open the warrant and to close the date to close the warrant. January 1st, the warrant is advertised for closing for petition articles. On February 12th, the warrant closes at 3 p.m., so at that point, citizen petitions will no longer be accepted. March 25th, the select board signs the warrant. April 2nd is the deadline for posting the warrant prior to town meeting. April 10th, the advisory board mails the warrant to voters, and then town meeting is May 4th.
Motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second? Motion to open the warrant?
Second?
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, real quick. So we, one of the agenda item requests I had at one point was to have the select board look into, kind of how other towns run town meeting, and I use Cohasset as an example. From what I understand, they have one night of town meeting for the past 5 or 6 years, and, again, I'm just looking for, I guess, the board's appetite for trying to improve town meeting, both in terms of the length of town meeting, and again, to improve attendance. I think if it's a night or two, you'll get a much better turnout. But the other issue that was a big problem last year was, the seats are not fantastic, and we know the makeup of Hull residents is mostly older people, my age, 59 or older, and it's extremely difficult to sit for that many hours after working all day in those seats. And I don't know if we have options. We might not have options, but I'm just, again, seeing if the board has an appetite to discuss this. I know the chairman's been discussing this with, you did say you were going to take the reins on that and discuss that with some other towns?
I've had discussions with the select board chairs of Situate, Cohasset, and Hingham. They do go, their town meetings go 1 or 2 nights, but they all have a meeting in the fall as well. So it's easy to say they only go 1 night, but they have 2 separate meetings. One in the fall where they go over some of the boilerplate pieces, and then in the spring, the town meeting. So even if they say they're only 2 nights, they're really meeting 3 nights. If they say they're meeting 1 night, they're meeting 2 nights. So that was what I found to be the biggest difference between how we run our town meeting and how they run theirs. So
Was there anything operationally that was a big difference that you noticed, that we could, in other words, that we could improve on?
No, actually, they think we improved on it by using the clickers. They were impressed by that when I discussed it. So operationally, to me, that was the biggest thing that they said, was they have this fall town meeting to get rid of a lot of the boilerplate pieces. So when they have the annual town meeting, it's
Streamlines
shorter.
it, yeah.
But it's still 2 nights, 2 different places, 2 different dates.
Well, if I may, there was probably 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, our town moderator had a few nights, and I believe when those meetings were going on, he actually put it on cable and repeated it to inform the citizens, but the citizens need to want to be informed before they get to town meeting. That would help. Like you talked about the advisory board, get engaged, read the town website, study it before you get there. That'll help.
Right, and town manager last year, and I'm assuming it'll be improved this year, piloted interactive warrant. So folks could go onto the town website, click on the warrant, and there would be more detailed information about all of the items. So we are trying things and processes to move it along more quickly, and we're hoping that people will use the interactive town warrant.
That sounds great, and the only other question I have then is the location, and the I know it takes away from the gym at the high school for extended nights. It could be 2-3 nights in there, right? So the gym is kind of taken out of service for the high school. Do we have another venue in town, like at the new town hall, that might suffice with an overflow room, or,
Not really. I mean, ideally, we don't have an overflow room. It's just doubles and triples the expense because we have to be connected in all those rooms just like we are in the main room. We used to have it in the auditorium at the high school. I'm not sure that's large enough, and I'm not sure it's...
It's a capacity,
And
at the middle school?
Around
say,
400.
yeah.
The capacity there. But there was probably 20 times in the last years that we had it there was somebody in the cafeteria and they couldn't hear the question.
Yeah.
Like she
And
was just saying, it becomes very hard to do when you have 2 locations.
Unfortunately, as much as I don't want to say this, I don't know that it's the most comfortable in terms of security space any longer for a town meeting. The gym, I know the seating is not ideal. We did look into different chairs. They come in at exceptionally increased cost. So we did ask I think it was the Boosters or Haifa to sell their sit-upon cushions, and we can look into that again for this year. I mean, I personally thought it made a huge difference.
Yeah.
They're not the best chairs, but
What's the capacity
I don't
in the
know.
middle? Do you know the middle school auditorium?
I don't know, but the middle school auditorium,
Probably
I
less,
think,
right?
Well, you still
It
need
is
rigid
less,
chairs.
but-
It doesn't change the chair issue. Because the middle school auditorium doesn't have seats.
Oh, it doesn't?
No.
It's like a multi-purpose room. It doesn't have seats.
I think in answer to your question, we are looking into it, and we're trying to figure out what would and could work here in town that's being done differently. But like I said, the primary thing that they were using to shorten their meeting was having a meeting in the fall.
The last thing I'll say is this, is I got in some trouble last year for walking around during town meeting, and that is a direct result of the quality of the seating, and I may have to do that again. I will not apologize for that, and other people should feel free to do the same. It's like
how'd you
being
get in
seated on a
trouble?
plane for too long.
Did you get it?
Good to get up
Tamara?
there.
How'd you get in trouble?
I'll just leave it at that.
Erwin, if I could just add a thing or two. So just as a reminder, in the vein of education, the town meeting is actually the town moderator's deal. And so the board can certainly make recommendations to him in this case, but those decisions would ultimately come from the
Wait a
town.
minute, you're telling me the town moderator makes the decision on where the venue is?
Town meeting
In a
is
vacuum?
under the authority of the town moderator.
He makes that decision in a vacuum?
He or she does, yes.
Not in a vacuum.
Interesting.
No,
That's
not in a
their
vacuum, but
decision.
Not in a
yeah.
vacuum.
Well, it's his decision ultimately.
Yeah.
He's the ultimate authority, you're saying.
And in terms of speeding up the process or getting information out there, I did actually meet with him this week, and I know, I think we're all going to collectively meet sooner than later. And, we're talking about other information sessions that we might be able to offer on the articles and have, not the full debate pre-town meeting, but just sessions to inform the community on the articles. They can come and ask questions. That's not fully baked yet, but we are, we're actively thinking and discussing about ways to improve the process and just getting information out in different ways.
Susan Vermilia, East Street. Just a suggestion, I know the interactive warrant, was a great addition last year. If there was a Q&A funnel place for people to be able to ask questions, I think a lot of the sort of stuff that comes up at town meeting is people asking for clarity. Let me ask a question about this. Let me understand things a little bit better. And that is what might drag on some of the comments. And so if you can tackle some of those questions ahead of time, it might help to trim down some of the meeting. I mean, I think you're going to see an improvement this year anyway, right? Because you moved it from 7 minutes to 5 minutes limit.
Yeah, that was voted on.
So that
at
was
town
voted on
meeting.
this year, so that's going to improve. But I think if you were to have some kind of advertise that, this email address, you can, ask your warrant questions in advance, then that might really help to move things along.
Great, thank you.
And then the theater in the high school, did you say it's 400 people?
Just about.
Okay, because that's about what we get,
It is,
right?
yeah. With some standing room?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've looked at the stats over the last 5 years.
It becomes very confined in there, and you have 40 people behind the seats. And you never know. I mean, if town meeting doesn't have a lot of stuff on it, you could get 200 people there. But if there's a lot of warrant articles, you can't predict.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I know. You never know how many people are
You gotta have a safe
gonna.
place for an overflow.
Yeah.
Those seats aren't better.
No.
No.
I don't think.
We've also, Town Moderator Institute, through Town Meeting Institute, the consent agenda, to try to bundle as many of those up as he can. And he's definitely more aggressive sometimes than I might want him to be on bundling warrant articles. But at the end of the day, it's his, especially the way the bylaws written, it's his prerogative. We weigh in, or select board chair, I weigh in. But it's ultimately his decision what he puts onto that consent agenda. And he definitely likes to put more rather than less on there. And that definitely speeds things up.
Sure.
For something one time.
Yeah.
Oh, I just missed one of your dates. What is
Name and address, please.
Oh, sorry, Leslie Taylor, 1164 Nantasket.
Yes, Leslie.
You said something was January 1st, and I missed it. What was that?
What did I do?
January 2nd
January
was advertised warrant closing for petition articles.
Advertised warrant closing.
So people know.
Citizens.
So it's the deadline for citizen petitions.
And then the
Advertising the February date.
That's the
We're
date.
advertising, right, we're advertising the
February 12th
deadline
is
for
the
those
closing.
citizen.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
But can I just
Yes,
add, it's important to make a distinction. There is a closing of citizens petition warrant articles, and that is earlier, that's that February 12th date. And then later, when the warrant closes, the town still has additional opportunities to add their own warrant articles. Like, might be sponsored by the planning board, or by the board of selectmen, or town manager, or the advisory board, or something like that. So there's two distinct closings of the warrant.
Good, thank you.
And for any
clarifying.
board or staff that's watching, it won't be March 25th. It'll be sometime before then.
Yes.
Yes. That's the deadline, but it's before then, right. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Did we get a second?
We did?
We did?
Did we?
We did.
Brian did.
Oh,
Brian
sorry.
seconded? Okay.
Who made the motion, though?
I did.
Moved by Gray, seconded by McCarthy. All in favor? Okay, it's passed. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the declaration of trust for the town affordable housing trust. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, guys.
So just very quickly, this was sent out. I hope everybody had a chance to review it. Essentially, it mirrors the article that was passed in the bylaws of the trust. The purpose of the declaration of trust, once this is signed, it will be filed with the Register of Deeds. Once that is done, the trust is in a position to accept donations, cash donations, real property, whatever. So this actually allows the trust to function. So any questions about it?
I don't have a question, I'm just ready to make a motion to approve.
I do just want to say this is fantastic, and thank you and to the committee for doing the work. I mean, especially, from when we adopted the CPA back in 2016, this was always envisioned, and it just hasn't been done because people haven't put in the effort and the work, and I know because it's a lot of work, and so thank you to everybody who did. It's fantastic. I'm glad to have it.
Folks working on it. Brian, did you want to add anything about the declaration?
No, I think you said it all, Mr. Chairman. That sums it up unless anybody had any questions. But if you're comfortable with the language and comfortable with the explanation, that's good enough for me.
Right, thank you. I'm going to pass the last page around. There are two signatures. One signature approves the declaration of trust, and the signature on the back actually appoints the members of the housing trust.
So before we sign it, can we okay it?
Yes. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the trust.
Well, I made the
Oh, yeah, I'll
Motion.
second the motion.
Okay, moved by Gray, seconded by McCann. Any further discussion?
Just very briefly, Mr. Chairman, there's a lot of people that feel like Hull, you know, over the years, and I'll use the old Hall estate as an example. I've talked to some people back then where it was available for a song, right? And we discussed why it's a problem for a municipality to just act quickly to move on a piece of property. It would have been so great for so many reasons, right? But this, to me, is a fantastic first step. It's kind of an investment by the town of Hull, right? The funding largely came from
CPA.
This would be CPC.
And you know, we've gone through this over multiple meetings, so it's just, again, fantastic. And I hope to see Habitat for Humanity, who's been in here specifically talking about this, to work on projects. And the last thing I'll say is the town of Hull has a bunch of derelict lots that are maybe undersized, and it might be a good opportunity to maybe, you know, if we're not going to do anything with these lots, to donate it to the Housing Trust and maybe provide, you know, an exception for the lot size for affordable housing. I think that'd be
The
fantastic.
trust is looking into that, and I think 2 years ago, the Affordable Housing Committee got a grant to hire consultants who did the survey of town properties, and we're looking at some of the properties that are appropriate for housing, and then others might require zoning variances or what's called a friendly 40B or whatever, if they are non-conforming lots. And the purpose of the trust is to be able to move quickly, as I said, rather than go through a long-term process. So we have a motion on the table, on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yeah, and to the group that did a tremendous amount of work on this. It shows what can be done when townspeople get together and want to accomplish something.
And did the full board sign it?
Yes,
Full board signed it.
So we can give it back, correct?
just one page, right?
Jerry, you didn't sign the back.
2 signatures?
We need the trust members to sign it before we can file it at this point. Need something to do?
Do this one first.
Yeah. Okay, now we're looking at, next on the agenda is select, I'm sorry, we have 4,
Goes to the next page.
goes to the next page. Okay, we have 8 restaurants that have required an extension to stay open till 2 a.m. on New Year's Eve. This is something that we've done in the past, so it would be a one-day amendment to their licenses. That is California Underground, Cena, Daddy's, Joe's Nautical, Nantasket Beach Resort, The Parrot, Sandbar, and Schooners. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Second. Okay, moved by Gray, seconded by McCann. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay, next is, we have a number of renewals for alcohol licenses. The first one is California Underground, 257 Nantasket Avenue, Oslam Martin, the manager, looking for an amendment of hours to change their opening to 7 a.m. and closing at midnight.
Motion to approve.
Wait, before we do the motions here, I just wanted to ask the town managers, there's no, with any of these alcohol license renewals, nothing that was raised by the police department or anything that we should be aware of? No. Okay. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, we have, motion's been made by Gray, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by McCarthy. Any further discussion? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Next one is Shipwreck is asking for an extension to remain open until January 15th, 2026. As we discussed earlier, they have a seasonal license that ends at the end of November, and they would like an extension to remain open until January 15th.
I think we did that.
Did we vote on that?
We didn't vote on that.
Oh.
All right,
No, we
motion to approve.
A second.
Okay, moved by Gray, seconded by McCann. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we have a group of alcohol license renewals. I'm going to read through them quickly. Schooners, Rick Ray Inc., doing business as Schooners, C-Note LLC, doing business as the C-Note, Daddy's Ventures, doing business as Daddy's Dry Dock, McDivitt Enterprises, doing business as Joe's Nautical, Arc Lux Inc., doing business as Mambo's, Beach Food Inc., doing business as Mezzomari, Nantasket NHG LLC, doing business as Nantasket Beach Resort, MCC Martini Inc., doing business as Boathouse Bistro, Houlihan Seaside, doing business as The Parrot, and Jessie Cat LLC, doing business as Toast. These are all alcohol renewals. We've had no issues, no complaints from police or abutters about these.
Well, just a note, some of them do have common vic, some of them have entertainment in there. But I would make a motion to approve as read.
Okay.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, aye.
If I may,
Mr. Greenberg.
Mr. Chairman, you just approved the 2 a.m., and I noticed that it's Nantasket Beach Resort, but not the bistro. Did the bistro not apply? Is it a separate license?
These are the applications that we have. The 2 a.m. was, let me go back to that. Daddy's Dry Docks, Joe's
Well,
Nautical.
I do know Steve, I don't think he was
believe he
reaching to do that.
Yeah.
I talked to him last night.
Okay.
It wasn't in his wheelhouse.
Because I think that the license went to the resort before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, as long as they're aware of it.
Yep.
We have livery service badges renewal, 3. I'll read all 3 of them. Bayside Coach, Deborah Rock, and Carmen Arroyo. So there are 3 livery service badges up for renewal.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Gray, seconded by McCarthy. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. We have package store renewals, Lighthouse Enterprises doing business as A Street Liquors, and Madhu Inc. doing business as Smart Save Variety Store. These are both 2 package store renewals.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Gray, seconded by McCann. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we got a bunch of Common Vic, which are the food licenses. These are all renewals. I'll read through them. Bread Basket Bakery, Crave, Gateway LLC doing business as Dunkin' Donuts, Dylan's Pizza, My Inc. doing business as Hull Jade Restaurant, L Street Pizza, Nantasket Beach Cafe doing business as Saltwater Diner, Scoops Cafe, PF Hospitality doing business as Shipwrecked, Paula Kaufman and Rafael Cordosa doing business as To Dine For, P&N Bakery doing business as Weinberg's Bakery. Again, these are all renewals.
I'll make a motion, but we'll call it Scoops Ice Cream. I think you said cafe.
Okay, Scoops Ice Cream.
That's a lot to read.
Moved by Gray, seconded by McCann. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we have 3 lodging house renewals. NHS of the South Shore, Inc., doing business as NeighborWorks Neighborhood Housing Services, and that's at 24 Park Avenue. Park Avenue Realty Trust, LLC, doing business as Nantasket Beach Lodging, and Sandpiper Real Estate, LLC, doing business as Sandpiper Inn.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Gray, seconded by McCann. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you. One Entertainment. I'm going to need a drink of water after this. PF Hospitality, doing business as Shipwrecked. It's a renewal for their entertainment license.
So moved.
A second.
Moved by Gray, seconded by McCann. All in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Thank you. Then we have 2 Class 2 wholesale. Ben's Auto at 7 Western Street, and Nantasket Auto Sales and Repair at 410 Nantasket Avenue.
So moved.
A second.
Moved by Gray, seconded by McCann. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay, now that drink of water.
Nice job.
I think we moved, I was going to ask the clerk to read it, but I didn't want you throwing anything at me.
Yeah. We could have split it up.
Okay.
You have a question in the audience?
Yes.
Is that the end of the agenda where?
That's the end of the agenda. We're going into updates and then into executive session.
Okay, should I wait until after the updates if I have a question about something that was discussed earlier?
Today? Yeah, go right ahead now.
So earlier, when you were talking about the bid consultant, that she was doing something pro bono, can you explain a little more about that and who she is, if that's the same consultant as before?
Yeah, there's nothing going on currently with the bid. I only mentioned that she had offered to continue the work pro bono.
Who is she? Was
Ann
that
Burke.
Yeah. the one before. I offered to do that, okay. And the MOPD state grant, can you say what that one is?
MOBD,
MOPD?
Mass Office.
Of Business Development.
Thank you,
Okay.
Steve.
And then the 250th grant, I thought that was actually a town meeting article that money was approved, no?
It was not, there was a small portion included in last year's annual town budget. The town applied for a grant. Unfortunately, we did not get the grant. A very small number of communities got grants through that 250th program.
Okay, so there was money there should be some money from the article. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, that was me too. I misspoke.
We didn't, we missed.
We didn't get it. Yeah, I thought we did. So I apologize.
Okay, town manager updates.
Thank you. A couple of administrative updates. So just as a reminder, first I want to wish everybody a happy Hanukkah and happy holidays, whatever that might be that you celebrate. For town hall hours, town hall will be closed on Christmas Eve, which is December 24th, and then Christmas Day, December 25th, and will be closing at noon on December 31st, and is closed New Year's Day, January 1st. The board's upcoming anticipated schedule for January is January 7th and January 21st. And then just a reminder to the community that the town, through our DPW department, does offer free Christmas tree pickup. That schedule is out, so please take a look at it. I know it's typically in the Hull Times as well as listed on the town website and the DPW's page. Please, we ask that you do pay attention to those dates so that you don't miss your date, because I'm sure they have, but do not go back out for individual calls. And it is a great service that the town offers. Other than that, just a couple of project updates. We had a project kickoff meeting for the village fire station. That work is scheduled to begin in January, and I believe will run through early spring, April or May. The project should be completed. There might be some slight disruptions on Spring Street with construction vehicles, but we don't anticipate many, and we have asked the contractor to please let us know, and obviously let the neighbors know when they may anticipate any disruptions on that road. We had the Samoset and Manomet public meeting last weekend. I think it went very well. I was quite pleased to see that the majority of the room were Manomet and Samoset residents. So good to know we were able to get the word out to them, and they actively participated in that process. I did get a summary, I believe, today of that meeting from the engineers that were there, and we'll start posting project updates and information. We may do what's known as a story map, and that's just it's actually the interactive town warrant is a story map, so do that same process for projects as we're able to, so that people can follow them along.
Would you be able to, could you send out that summary? Because not all the board members were there, so
Yep.
bring everybody up to date.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to just let the board know, because I think I already have received one email, and as we start approaching next season, I'm sure the questions will start popping up relative to the railroad bed. And Brian and I, town council and I, have discussed this, and we'll start bringing this discussion to the board beginning in January. It's not going to be a one-time discussion, but we'll start approaching that topic in January. And then I also wanted to let residents and the board know that we did, in fact, do a Crescent Beach cleanup this week. So what we were able to do was clean up any of the loose items on Crescent Beach. And when I say loose items, there are a number of decades-old dinghies and debris, lobster traps that the dunes have grown over, and so we're not able to remove those without a permit, and there's still, we can't get machinery down there, so I'm not quite sure how we would be able to. But my understanding, and I'm awaiting pictures, is that it looks considerably better, and all that debris has been collected and removed. We also did post to let the neighbors know, and of course the neighbors saw staff out there doing the cleanup. If they have items on the beach, that they should come collect them. A number of residents did come collect their items. We still have a handful of kayaks and I think a few dinghies that will be kept at the DPW barn. If anybody does have one down there that they need to retrieve, they can stop by the DPW barn to retrieve them. And then I just wanted to address an article that was in Hull Times, and I understand that the Times did not write that article, and that was relative to James Avenue. We did receive information or request from that neighborhood to act on the 2017 article, which authorized the town to take the property by eminent domain, but it was not funded. Subsequent to 2017, there was a series of conservation and DEP related actions or actions related to James Ave. So it's not necessarily as black and white as just requesting funding to obtain that property. But I did want to, the point being is that there have been numerous conversations with residents in that neighborhood. I myself have done a number of site visits. I've had public safety also do a site visit, just given the nature of the work that the resident that owns that access, that sliver of land where the access to the beach is, actions that he had taken just to make sure it wasn't a public safety concern, and for better or worse, it is not. But it is something that I have also, we'll be visiting with town council, and hopefully we'll have some more information on how we may be able to proceed. I understand that it's a very frustrating situation for the residents down near James Ave or that use the James Ave beach area, and it's, I will say it's a quite unfortunate situation. But we do have to follow proper and legal process that we will look into. And then just before the board breaks, I do have one more document that that requires the board's signature, and this is just application for sewer relief funds through the state. I don't want anyone to get overly excited. It is very nominal money, but it is some funding that we will request. And I think that's all I have for this evening. Stacy, was there anything?
We're almost fully staffed.
Wow, getting there.
One position, and we have one that we'll be interviewing next week, so very exciting.
Thank you. Good. I just wanted to begin by, I just want to do this and then.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure we're missing.
This guy over here, I didn't miss it. I didn't miss you either, don't worry. I just wanted to update the board on a meeting that we had about a week and a half ago. It was chair and vice chair of the select board, chair and vice chair of the light board. Town manager participated also. Purpose of the meeting was to discuss how we could move forward in a more cooperative manner and to begin to open up a more constructive discourse. It was just a discussion. There were no decisions made or recommendations made to present to the board. But out of that meeting, the idea came about having more meetings like that on a regular basis. So I reached out to the chair of the planning board, again, the chair of the MLP, and the chair of the school committee, and we will be setting up quarterly meetings for these four boards with the chairs and the vice chairs. First meeting will be January 6th, and the idea, again, is to try to break down some of the silos that exist between these elected bodies so that we can take more of a holistic overview of the town, and have a good understanding of what these other boards are doing, what the issues are that they're coming up with. So these will be quarterly meetings. It'll be the chairs and vice chairs of each committee, and the first meeting will be on January 6th. When I reached out to the other chairs, they were all very enthusiastic about it. So that's something that I hope can just keep the information flowing, break down any silos that exist, and that we're all in this together so we can work together on that. Jason, that's all I got.
Just a couple updates. The zoning bylaw study committee met for the first time since I've been appointed onto it. It was productive. We covered a lot of ground, a lot of different things. We kind of recapped the last town meeting, different ideas that people have for this year. One actionable thing, I remember Julia Parker, who's on the design review board, and myself are going to work on a initial markup of some thoughts people had around the NBOD, or Nantasket Beach Overlay District section of the zoning bylaw. It's kind of a time crunch to get all the processes done in order to, as you know, to get something lined up for town meeting. But I just wanted to update the board on that. Just community-wise, the whole Gay Pride group has been really busy. We just had a holiday event this Saturday, which was very successful at Sandbar, and we raised $2,000 for our scholarship funds.
Congratulations.
We're also doing these first Thursdays at different restaurants, so it's the first Thursday of every month, just like an open social. And it was, we did it last time at Mambo's. I think we're going to go back to Mambo's, and just thinking about it with the EDC discussion. It's been a nice way to get a good number of people out on some of the restaurants on quieter days, and so that's been quite successful. Everybody's welcome to that, as well as everybody's welcome to the ongoing, we're also going to keep going our Queer Book Club partnership with the public library, which has been great. Every month we do a different book, also open to everybody, very broadly themed, and I think I've tried to say every time we discuss these things, just can never say enough good things about the library. It has so much goodwill already because of the building, but the staff there is just absolutely fantastic and energetic, and I know we're not the only group that they collaborate with on a regular basis, and it's so appreciated. It's so nice to have it open on like a couple nights a week, in the evening. You do these things after work.
They're very easy to work with too, the staff there.
Yeah.
Supportive.
That's all.
Greg?
I have no updates, but just happy holidays to everyone and Happy New Year.
Yeah, sounds good.
I'm the same way. I'll echo what Greg said.
Okay, Jerry?
That's it? That was
That's
quick.
it.
All right. I just got a couple things.
We got Brian waiting for us,
So,
minute, huh?
number one is just if we have an update, question for the town manager on the seawall roadway design and the one-way decision of which way it's going to go. That's
We do not.
okay. And the second part of that is, will there be public hearings on that particular issue, like deciding which way the one, and again, I don't have a dog in that fight either, but I think a lot of people are very staunch on their opinions for a lot of different reasons.
There will be, yes, there will be another public meeting. Right now, we're really focused on getting that wall completed. They're back behind 948 Nantasket Avenue right now, and completing the season. That's been the focus of the project right now.
Sure. Okay. And so the Samoset Manomet meeting, I was not present, but I was watching that. I thought it was really, good, honest, frank discussion with the neighbors, the very first one, right? Public hearing on that topic. And again, I don't really have an opinion either way. The concern is it's a major change of a roadway from two-way to one-way. And my guess was many of the neighbors would have some concerns, and they did express their concerns. There were quite a few concerns. And the biggest to me was, has the overall traffic plan for the town, including the two-way roadway changes and everything else, been taken into account? And it sounded like the answer was kind of no. It was kind of, those consultants are looking at just Manomet and Samoset, right?
They are looking just at Manomet and Samoset, but they are in communication, and we have brought them together with the engineers that are working on the two-way road conversion, as well as DCR, because DCR has some ownership there by the bathhouse near Phipps Street, and So there has been coordination. We are trying to coordinate as best possible, but there's separate projects.
Understood, yeah. And so again, I'm not going to go into detail on all the concerns that were brought up by the neighbors. The meeting's available for the public to go watch, but they were substantial, in my opinion. And there were a lot of concerns, parking related. Speed was a massive concern, and trying to put in some design, and I don't know what that is, but how to mitigate speed, which is a problem as a two-way road as it stands. And their concern is that if it moves to a one-way road, it's going to be made worse.
Yeah, if I could address that a little bit. So speed, the parking was a concern, but we anticipated that going into this project always, which is why the recommendation is to make Samoset and Manomet each one-way roads that are a loop. So in one way in opposite directions, and I don't think directions have been decided yet. The speed, I know there's a perception that the speed is greater than what it actually is. I think given the nature of the road, realistically, by and large, the speed can only be so great without absolutely destroying a vehicle. But the speed is a main concern. And I think it was raised by somebody that, there was a recommendation by that same group that if you make a road a one-way road, this came up with Beach Avenue, if the board recalls, that it would actually increase speeds. And that is true, but that's a very different roadway design than what is being proposed for Manomet and Samoset. So Manomet and Samoset are being proposed as complete street projects, which would include parking. We knew that the eliminating parking would be a non-starter. So it would include parking on both sides of the street for the majority of both roadways. Significant speed reduction, and a complete streets project is built to state and federal highway standards. So it's a little more control and oversight on a project in terms of the components of that project. Sidewalks and a shared pathway and a bike lane. So none of that was a component on Beach Avenue. That was just that would have become one literal straightaway where people are crossing from the end of a street and off a dune area that already has obstructed view. That would not be the case for Samoset and Manomet. So that's the very distinct and important difference in those two projects.
I appreciate the detail. I don't think it was, super necessary, but I think the main concern for me is that we're looking, and we've already voted to move, right, the TIPS route, right, as a select board to go down that road. Again, after hearing some of the concerns by the neighbors, my concern is that this is a road that could be fixed in the short term by town vote and, just repaving the road. And I know the utility work that has to happen beforehand, and there's other issues, but if we go the TIPS route, there's other considerations that we should really, think about, which is cost of paving now versus cost of paving 10 years from now, which was a massive problem 4 years ago when COVID hit, and, cost spiraled out of control. So, I just think we need to look at all those things, and I'm not sure how to get around it. Maybe it's and this is a question, but maybe it's trying to get funding for this project at town meeting sooner to gauge community interest on this, because again, it is a major roadway change. I don't live on those roads, but with a picture of very heavy, the worst beach day of the year, Juneteenth, last year or the year before, and now those roads, instead of being two-way, are one-way. Is that going to be a bigger problem for the town hall?
No, I don't think so. So
I'd want to see some, a consultant's report, an engineer's traffic report.
They provided traffic reports and the traffic counts, which were conducted on a warm July Sunday, I should say. And they did traffic counts as is normal for any traffic count project on a series of days. They're not going to, capture that data every day in season or every day of a year, but they did capture traffic counts, I want to say, on 4 different occasions over the course of the summer. Your question about funding it sooner than later, so that was also discussed. If we go the TIP route, it's the same investment by the community. We estimate $5 to $6 million. So for $5 or $6 million, we can get, a full reclamation and just literally a paved striped road. Or for the same investment, we can get the $20 million project with the sidewalks, the bike lane, the shared path, the speed reduction features.
Yeah.
Well, let me just finish. But then the other piece was that interim that nobody wants to, do we have 10 years to wait to repair this road? We're costing out right now overlaying Matamet and Samoset so that we can repair it, but that's a short-term fix that would get us through that time period so that we can do that tip project, which really would be, reformative for that area.
Right, but that's an additional cost to weigh on the scale of the tip side of the equation, if
That
you
would
will.
come from the state. That would be state and federal dollars. That would not be local.
To repave? No, in other words, if we say in the short term, we're going to repave those roads
Yep.
as a short-term solution because the roads are in tough shape, that's, the town's paying for that money, for that.
Yes.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is that's an additional expense for the equation in the argument to go the tip route.
Yeah, well,
right?
that's why I'm saying 5 to 6, because we estimated about 5 without repaving them, probably closer to 6 if we do an interim overlay.
Yeah, I think if you take the one-way changes out of the equation, it's a no-brainer.
Then we lose parking, so,
If you go the tips route.
yeah.
If I could, I think it's important that we wait for round 2 to happen.
Yeah, I agree,
When they
yeah.
come back.
I agree. I wanted to bring it up
Better
because...
to talk about this then not now, because.
Yeah, and we probably shouldn't get too far into it.
Yeah, no, I wanted to bring it up because you provided an update, and I just wanted to give some clarification on, all of the comments from the neighbors that I heard and all of the very specific concerns, and there were many, so. And the last thing, very quickly, I know we want to get to executive session, is I appreciate the update from the chairman on the meeting. I believe it was at my request because, I did come to learn of this meeting. I'm just going to say I understand it's perfectly legal. It happens all the time. This is how things work. This is, the light plant issues currently going on are pretty contentious. And when I asked for an update, I was told basically there is basically no update. And you explained how, a summary of the meeting is not detailed minutes of a meeting that took place. And for a select board member to be told they can't be updated on a meeting, to me is, it gets to the point where if one meeting like that happens that we know about, there's probably many, many meetings like that happen. And at that point, if 3 select board members can be excluded on a regular basis from these meetings, it's just not, to me, the way good governance is meant to go. This is the entire point of having 5 elected executive-level policymakers. It's not to send out one, and I think this is a piece of the charter that no 1 or 2 members can go out and purport to represent the entire board in any capacity. And so I'm not saying that you guys, I don't have no idea what happened, is the point, and that's the whole point. I have no details, I have no meeting recording, no meeting minutes. I don't know what was said, and so I have to take your word for it. And all I would ask going forward is you would consider that, based on the issue and what's going on, and it might be best, and perhaps, a simple solution is to call all the people that were in that meeting, and we can have a discussion, and we can go over what was said in that meeting.
Couple corrections, and I'm not going to get into a back and forth. I know I never told you that I would not update you on it. I updated you exactly as I said here, that the meeting was called.
It was one sentence, though. It was an update.
Yeah,
You
and
said
that's
there's
what it
nothing
was.
basically to update you on.
I didn't, that's different than saying I won't update you. So I think we need to be very clear. I'm not
It's a
playing
good distinction.
I'm
I will-
not playing semantics here.
I'll grant you
I'm
that
not going to get
distinction.
into it with you. There were no decisions made. It was a discussion. And as chair, I meet with committee members and committees quite often, and I don't feel that there's any point that I should receive that I need to get permission from the rest of the board as chair to meet with committee members. That's a regular part of my job, as I see it. As I said, there were no policy decisions, no decisions. It was a free and open discussion. And we will continue with these quarterly meetings, there will be no policy decisions. They will be free and open discussions. And if there are policy decisions that come out of these, those decisions will be made by the relevant committees that are represented at those meetings. And I will update the board on those quarterly meetings, but that will be moving forward.
That's fair enough. So is the protocol the officers of the board, 2 officers from each board is acceptable? Obviously, that's for open meeting laws, but the only reason I bring that up is I have not been invited to any private meetings, not one in 2+ years.
There haven't been any private meetings.
Well, as an example, the one that you guys had.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
yeah.
I don't want to belabor the point, but I offered you a phone call. You didn't want to hear it, so.
You told me you were going to call me Saturday morning, and the phone never
And-
rang, and then you
and I
texted me on
called you
Sunday and
Tuesday,
said, I
texted
forgot
you
to call you.
Tuesday.
Do you want to call me?
Okay, I'm going to end this conversation here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're going to go into executive session at this point. Very brief comments.
Just want to see, Erwin, if I'll be expecting, Jake Valancourt, I want to know if I should expect a written response from you as the chair. I've sent not one but 2 emails. First one expressing some concerns, the second one expressing greater concerns about that meeting where there were potential civil rights violations.
Okay, I'm not going to address the meeting because what you wrote about the meeting has no reality to it.
The meeting was about me.
The meeting was not about you.
It was not about
It was
you.
not about you. I'll be very clear, you came up when we talked about letters to the Hull Times, and we talked about nobody from any board should be writing to the Hull Times representing that board. And when somebody identifies themselves as the clerk or an officer of that board, in a letter to the Hull Times, it appears that they're writing with. That was that discussion, and that if anybody represents a board in a letter to the Hull Times or anything else, they need to have the permission of the board. The meeting was not about you. The meeting, as I said, was how do we move forward in a less contentious and a more cooperative way. And that's
I'm open to
what
that,
it was.
but I think we should do that in open public sessions where all elected officials involved are able to be there, and the public can comment if they want to.
Fine, that's your opinion. Thank you. Okay,
Yes, was there, a question for the town manager updates, was there a DCR meeting on December 4th?
Yes, we did have a meeting. Yes, I believe, did your chair update you on that meeting?
No, because the meeting happened on December 3rd, and our meeting was the same night as your select board meeting, the 3rd, and then the DCR meeting was on the 4th. So no, we have not had an update. I was expecting one from the town manager.
Okay. We had a meeting with DCR. They provided us an update on the chair of the planning board was in attendance, so I suspect she'll be updating the planning board, and DCR provided an update to the group relative to their the DCR Parkways Vulnerability Assessment Report.
Was there an HRA representative? Because I know both have asked to be at those meetings for a long time.
There was not an HRA member there, but there was an HRA member appointed to attend those meetings.
Okay, I move to go into executive session pursuant to open meeting law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to discuss strategy with respect to the potential purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board, and the chair so declares, to comply with or act under the authority of the attorney-client privilege, to consult with legal counsel and obtain legal advice pursuant to the attorney-client privilege, read Beach Food and Steamboat Wharf. This is a roll call vote.
McCann, aye.
Gray, aye.
Nessoff, aye.
McCarthy, aye.
Taverna, aye.
And we will not reopen in open session. We will not reconvene in open session. Thank you.
All right, and before